From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Can I also ask for any apologies of absence, please?
Yes, I've received apologies from councillors Michael Autumn, Hal McPhee, Mark Elliott, Sam Kelly, Sarah Moore, Michelle O'Doherty, Sam Ross, Sean Stevenson-McGaul, Alison Stretfield-James, Sarah Warren, and I understand that Sarah Evans will be late but is on her way. Are there any more that have been said? Thank you.
Thank you. Declaration of interest. The monitoring officer has issued a general dispensation for all councillors as if they were in receipt of allowances. So, and if nobody's declared that, if they can, that would be great. Thank you. Or any other declarations from councillors on the agenda items in front of us? Councillor David Biddiston.
I have an interest in West Local buses on Keynsham Town Council.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Oh, Councillor Warren?
Yeah, should all declare an interest in the Green Party motion as a landlord.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Hale, I believe.
Yeah, do we have a general dispensation for the Avon pension thing?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
No.
It just is.
Do we have a general dispensation for the item?
It's only the annual report.
That's right. Well, just ask.
Thank you, Councillor Hale. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got a speaker from Comedia, and I wanted to say I am a community director at Comedia as well as shareholder, and also I'll be speaking, similar to Tim Warren. I'm speaking on the Green motion. I have a holiday let cottage, but it was never residential, and it can never be residential from the planning decision that was made. Okay.
Thank you. Can I just clarity? Will Councillor McCabe have to leave for that last?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Thank you.
And just sorry, Chair, just a couple more that have been notified to me via email from councillors Hardman and Grant about receiving BSIP funding from WECA for local bus services, about the bus item as well. Thank you.
And Councillor Jean Player?
I just want to check, do I need to declare I rent out a property? Having just heard Councillor McCabe.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Biddiston. Thank you. And sorry, I'm names now. Councillor Beaumont.
Hello, yes, I'm on the Keynsham Town Council committee for bus service, which is doing West Local. So.
Thank you. Now, did I see Councillor Waits?
Yeah, I own a property, so which is rented in.
Thank you. And Councillor Hughes. Yeah.
Yes, I shall declare an interest as a landlord as well for the Green motion.
Councillor Malloy.
Same for me. I mean, it's all on the website anyhow, but for clarity, yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Harding.
I need to declare an interest on the buses. I'm in a local community group that has run some funding for West Local buses.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. And Councillor Henman, sorry.
Yes, also declare that I have rental property with my sister.
And Councillor Hodge. That's it. Thank you very much. So, minutes of 19th of September 2024. Do I have somebody who wants to move that they're correct? Oh. Yeah, Councillor Johnson. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Matt McKay. And all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. So, announcements from the Chair. Councillors will have received a presentation from the Somerset Lieutenancy and have asked me to bring the nominations process for the King's Awards and national honours to the members' attention. So that's all been circulated to you in the week. So if you have anybody you would like to recommend to the King's Awards, please do so. Remind everyone to switch off their phones or put it on silence, and that's also your devices. Please remember to use your microphones. Don't put any papers in front of them because it will muffle the sound. And just to let you all know that this meeting is being webcast. And make sure you please turn off your microphones when you finish speaking. If the battery light is flashing, do not swap with another council member. Just let the camera crew know and they will sort it out for you. But they have all been fully charged. So remind all members of the public and councillors to treat others with respect during this meeting. Now I'd like to ask everybody to stand with me in a minute's silence to remember Rob Appleyard. Thank you. Urgent business agreed. To inform Council that you haven't agreed an urgent item to appoint an S105 officer, which will be item number 8. Right, so we now move on to public speakers. May I ask Lynn Patterson to come up, please? Lynn's not here. May I ask Tim Spratt? Tim's not here?
No, Tim's coming.
Ah, he's coming. Thank you. Hello, Tim.
Hello, Tim.
So can I ask you to give your 3-minute statement, please?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'm here on behalf of 300 residents who live on or close to Winford Lane, and some 3,500 people who've signed a petition against the ETRO the council has imposed on the lane. I'm here on behalf of people who have an innate understanding of the locality they live in and day out. And those people are now scared, they're frightened, and they're deeply upset. These are residents who have never been consulted on the Winford Lane ETRO, including those on Zion Hill, Julian Road and Morford Street, who walk their children to St Andrew's School, who go to the shops and nearby doctors' surgeries, and who now face bumper-to-bumper traffic and increased pollution where they live. In the High Court, at a cost of some £50,000 to the council, the ETRO was shown to be illegal. We say it remains illegal. The council's own safety report is deficient. It fails to confirm that the ETRO complies with either DFT guidance on cycling infrastructure LTN 120 or the Active Travel England check tool. So it's questionable if the WECA funding from CRSTS is legal. In short, the second lower Lansdowne ETRO is unsafe. It's unlawful, local residents don't want it, and it wasn't the outcome of the design process. And indeed, councillors may want to read the full-page article on page 4 in today's Chronicle. Even your current public consultation questionnaire doesn't fairly take into account those potentially affected outside the LTN. Instead, what your ETRO has achieved is more congestion on residential roads within and close to livable neighbourhoods, delays to bus timetables and longer car trips. The trial itself is unsafe. So I ask if it's really how Lib Dem councillors want to behave, to be perceived, to not seek compromise for those who you apparently represent. Paddy Ashdown said, I believe passionately in the middle ground and civilised negotiation, in compromise. Politics is about people, not ideology. And you said in your 2023 manifesto, local people know their area best, and you said you'd put residents first and actively listen to them. So why have you broken your promises to us?
Please bring your statement to a close, please.
Please talk to us. Please seek compromise and find an ETRO and LTN for our area that are safe, work as they're meant to,
Thank you.
and which help rather than hurt us.
Please. Councillor Guard, you have a factual question.
Thank you, Chair, but no factual questions.
Thank you. Councillor Moss.
No factual questions, but thank you for your statement.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, can I defer to Councillor Blackburn?
Certainly.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your statement. Could WECA be liable for approving ineligible funding and Baines forced to repay the CRSTS funds because you've stated that the ETRO does not comply with Department for Transport guidance? I ask because I'm told WECA are in turmoil and any decisions they've recently made might be scrutinised.
Is that a yes or no answer to that? Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Hello, thank you for your statement. What data does the Council have for traffic numbers on Julian Road before the ETRO and after the ETRO? Thank you.
I don't know, Councillor. You'd have to ask them.
Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Spratt. I'm sorry if I'm a bit slow on the uptake here. I was hearing that this was legal, and yet, can you just confirm you said the High Court fees £50,000 against the Council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your statement, and we'll make sure it gets back to the relevant Cabinet member.
Thank you,
Susan Charles.
Good evening, Susan Charles, Access Baines. At the full council meeting in September, I spoke of the need for accessible housing planned at the onset. I was asked how many accessible homes were available. I'm sorry, I did not have the answer. I only get to hear the difficulties that people are having. But thanks to our principal planner, Stephen George, and having read the Baines Local Housing Needs report that he sent, well, sorry, I'm still none the wiser. There are some figures for accessible, affordable housing, but not for market housing. But it does say that 8.8% of the population, that's 1 in 12 households, have one or more persons with a health problem that requires adaptation. That can require planning, permission, building contractors, upheaval, and in a case I heard of recently where a couple hired an accessible Airbnb at £1,000 per week for 4 weeks, whilst a shower and toilet was added onto the ground floor under the stairs of their house, as the wife had broken her hip. It's been 10 months now, while she lives on the ground floor, sleeps, eats and entertains in one room, still waiting for the operation, But imagine the difficulties if the adaptation wasn't done. They're both in their 80s. Statistics say 50% of the population will have a short or long-term disability in their lifetime. Illness and disability does not discriminate age or lifestyle. I was having to use a wheelchair at 48, and possibly then, for the rest of my life, I'd be needing accessible accommodation. A young couple in their late 20s buying their first house, their first son born with severe mental and physical disabilities. So as well as a new mortgage, they had to find another £47,000 to make their house accessible so the whole family could live together. It took nearly 3 years to complete. That boy is now 30 years old, my nephew, great-nephew. We are all only one diagnosis away from needing accessible accommodation. We talk about sustainable health and safety, improved insulation, planning for climate change. And as I've explained, illness and disability can strike at any time, any age, and in any type of housing. All that is needed is 5 changes to the plan and regs that could save the NHS, social service, and the client money, time, and not having to move house. So my question is, accessible planning is needed at the onset of new build, and if not, why not? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Councillor Guy.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the Speaker. Could I ask whether you'd be willing to meet the Cabinet Member for Housing to discuss this issue further?
I would be. Thank you very much.
Councillor Moss.
No factual questions, but thank you for your statements and for the information.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you for your statements, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. Defer to Councillor Helders.
Thank you for your statement. What are the 5 changes to the planning regs that you mentioned?
Could you repeat the question?
I was asking about the 5 changes to planning regs.
5 changes, yes. Oh gosh, now. Was level access, wider doorways, movable bathroom walls, i.e. no electrics or plumbing put on a bathroom wall that could be moved if more space was needed for walk-in shower or for being able to move a wheelchair around. Good lighting in stairways. Joists and rafters to be put in with a wider space in an area where a lift could be installed if needs be. And in some cases, there's got to be tracking, perhaps. Was that 5? I wasn't counting. It was.
Councillor Warren.
No further questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
May I ask Joanne Leasley to come up, please?
Good evening. This evening I want to be speaking about the raise of the UN flag as part of the Council's commitment to the ceasefire motion in Gaza. The raising of the UN flag on key dates was part of the agreed motion calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. This is to show in a visual way the Council's ongoing commitment to this motion, but also for other conflicts that are happening the world over. Therefore, it is very disappointing that the flag will only be flown on the International Day of Peace. This seems to have been an executive decision made by Kevin Guy, and there has been no consultation with the Green Group who brought the motion, as well as the people impacted in this community. This is undemocratic, and the Ukrainian flag is always raised. It is right that we show solidarity with the Ukrainian people. But how must other refugees from our community feel? Those who have fled the horrors of Palestine, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Sudan, Yemen, to name a few. Their plight is largely ignored, not only by this Council, the media and our government. Flying the UN flag shows the Council is committed to promoting peace in all places ravaged by war, but it is insufficient to raise it only on the International Day of Peace. In consultation with those impacted by the genocide in Gaza, we suggest the following dates to fly the UN flag. November the 20th to the 27th is the International Day of the Rights of Children's Rights. November the 29th of December the 5th, the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. December the 9th to the 16th is the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of Crime of Genocide. We believe it should not be solely up to Kevin Guy to make this decision, and we insist there will be a consultation about the dates that we have proposed. Only raising on the International Day of Peace, when the Ukrainian flag is raised all the time, clearly marginalises other refugee groups living in Bath and North East Somerset. Thank you.
Councillor Guy, do you have perhaps a question?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your statement.
Thank you. Councillor Moss?
No factual questions, but thank you for your statement.
Councillor Hughes?
Yes, thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you for your statement. No factual questions.
Councillor Warren?
No factual questions, thank you.
May I ask Maria Duffy to come up, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the councillors for the opportunity to speak this evening. In July, this council passed a motion pledging to express deep sympathy and offer solidarity to those affected by the conflict in Israel and Palestine, including those impacted within the Baines community. I'm here today to ask how this pledge has been translated into action, particularly in line with councillors' responsibilities to their constituents. The Council's constitution clearly outlines your role to respond to queries, investigate concerns, communicate council decisions and represent the views of the community. For residents in Baines who feel the impact of this conflict, whether personally through family or friends or due to the heightened fears of division and discrimination, this pledge of solidarity should not be just words on paper, it is a commitment. What steps have you taken to ensure that those affected know they are supported? Have the same councillors who facilitated sanctuary for and assisted the 350 Ukrainian families in their hour of need proactively engaged with our local communities to understand their concerns, or reached out to relevant groups and organisations to foster dialogue and provide reassurance? I ask this because from conversations that I have had personally with Palestinian members of our community, nobody has reached out to them, despite being fully aware of their personal stories, some made right here in this room on several occasions. I raised this matter to Council in May and also asked why the same hospitality that was shown to the Ukrainian refugees has not been extended to the desperate people of Gaza. I did not receive an adequate response. Why is their suffering viewed as non-urgent, given that the death toll in Gaza is comprised of at least 22,000 children, mainly in the 5 to 9 age group? It is a humanitarian disaster, but actually it's a genocide, and that has been 76 years in the making, abetted by Britain and the United States. Right now, there are traumatised Palestinian and Lebanese people working and studying in Bath who need to be supported, to be heard. They have families, or what's left of their families, still living under the threat of being burned alive in their tents or blown to pieces by Israeli rockets. To conclude, I urge the Council to reflect on those promises made in July and to uphold those pledges. Bath Council now has the opportunity to show compassion and be an example to other councils nationally. Again, the offer for the council to contact either me or any of the speakers from Bath campaigns, or indeed the Palestinian community themselves, it still stands.
Could I ask you to bring your statement to a close, please?
Yes, it's closing now. True solidarity requires consistent effort, and our community deserves to see this council living up to the values it has declared. Thank you.
Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. The Council has a refugees officer. Would you be willing, and your group, to officially meet with that refugees officer?
Absolutely, yes. I wish I'd known about this last year, a few months ago. But thank you.
I'll facilitate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Moss.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you for your statements, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. No factual questions.
Councillor Warren.
No, again, thank you for coming, but no factual questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask Polly Campbell-Preston to come up, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. As both a Bath resident and a member of the human race, I would like to address point 7 of the measures which the Council pledged to undertake in July when their peace motion was unanimously passed, whereby it calls on the Government to ensure that there are safe and legal routes for refugees and to reform the UK resettlement scheme to allow a route to safety for the most vulnerable in Gaza, with emergency pathways for those seeking refuge from the conflict, and emphasises its readiness as a community in Bath and North East Somerset to provide support and open our arms to innocent people displaced and affected by these events, as the community did for refugees from Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine. I wouldn't like to pour cold water on any part of this statement, but I haven't formed quite the same impression of the help bestowed upon fleeing Syrians and Afghans in relation to that offered to their Ukrainian counterparts. This is only subjective conjecture on my part, and it is arguably possible that quantitative data could dispel this. Indeed, the level of support, welcome and solidarity shown to the Ukrainians fleeing the invasion of their country has no doubt set a truly wonderful precedent for how we will henceforth be honouring our duty towards all those fleeing oppression, occupation and imminent danger to life. I can only imagine the frustration and helplessness you must be feeling, as are we, at not being able to offer the same open arms to those desperately trying to escape the unimaginably barbaric horrors being meted out on Palestinians in Gaza. My question is this: to whom was the plea for emergency pathways conveyed, and what was their response? I fervently hope the reply wasn't filled with platitudes and faux concern. Whilst, as elected representatives, you might be feeling as demoralised as we the public are, you have the unique opportunity of being able to communicate directly with central government. The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." Were all local councils to overwhelm government channels with their voices, imagine what good could come from it. Can we therefore take it as read that the Council is clamouring as loudly as it is able through all available channels and is leaving no stone unturned to ensure implementation of these measures? Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Councillor Guy.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Moss.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you for your statements, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. No factual questions.
Councillor Warren.
No factual questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Polly. May I ask Benazir Jatoy, please? I apologise if I said that wrong. It's fine.
Thank you. I sit here today as a Bath resident and a UK citizen to express concern that the 18th July commitments made through a peace motion passed by this Council are a weak and watered-down attempt to address the genocide and the impact it has had on Palestinian and Muslim residents in Bath. So while I acknowledge this Council and thank the Greens for bringing this motion to allow BAMES to join the growing number of councils around the country demanding a ceasefire, this motion is not forceful enough. One of the fundamental flaws is the amendment made to the title, from a ceasefire motion to a motion on peace. I would like to ask the Council why the title of the motion was changed. I ask this because language matters. Calling it a peace motion under the current circumstances of a live-streamed genocide reveals an attempt to be passive, neutral, apolitical, moderate, and dare I say, safe. An estimated 180,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel. 70% being women and children. According to the UN, famine has set in. Over 70,000 tons of bombs, worse than Dresden, London, and Hamburg, together in World War II, have been dropped on a strip of land no bigger than 360 kilometers. 80% of schools and 32 out of 36 hospitals destroyed. In this context, calling it peace is not the same thing as you, as a council, saying you oppose violence, you oppose the killing of civilians, you oppose sending arms to Israel, and you oppose injustice. Under these circumstances, a motion titled Peace Motion is the beginning of a cop-out, as it does not even mention Palestinians, Gaza, or a permanent ceasefire in its title. It is similar to when the slogan, Black Lives Matter, is distorted to say all lives matter. It becomes vague and hollow. And if my words don't convince you to question how, as a council, you remain relevant to the residents of the city and remain on the right side of history when the future judges you, I quote the words of Martin Luther King, where in a letter from a Birmingham jail in 1967, he said, "The moderate has been gravely disappointing. The moderate is more devoted to order than to justice. The moderate prefers a negative peace, which is absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." I end with questions to this council, especially a Lib Dem council that called for a ceasefire in Parliament. I seek an explanation as to why a ceasefire motion has been reworded to a peace motion. Why also has there been a lack of calling for a permanent ceasefire? And why is there no commitment made to demand the central government end arms sales to Israel? Or has this has this motion been passed as a mere tokenism and another box to tick? Thank you.
Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair, but no factual questions.
Councillor Moss.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. Are you aware that the Green Group tried several times to put a motion to Council on this issue?
Yes, I am aware, and I have thanked the Greens in what I've said, and I'm puzzled why the Lib Dem Council that calls for a ceasefire in Parliament does not do so here.
Thank you. I think you've answered that. Councillor Warren. Councillor Warren, sorry.
Thank you very much for your comments, but no factual questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jane Sampson, please.
Good evening. On a side note, last week a UN Special Committee stated that Israel's warfare methods in Gaza are consistent with genocide, including the use of starvation as a weapon. Today, the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for President Netanyahu and Gallant, the former Israeli Minister of Defence. I wonder if councillors here recognise that a genocide is being perpetuated, or do you not see the UN as a valid frame of reference anymore? Moving on, today we are calling for a meeting with Kevin Guy to discuss the commitments made in the peace motion passed on the 18th of July. Though absent at that vote, as leader of the council with executive power, it is Mr. Guy that we wish to speak to. Where are the Palestinians? Where is the Islamic community? It is sad indeed that Amira, Majdi, Lara and Mohammed, hard-working residents of Bath who pay taxes and support our economy, who have spoken repeatedly in council with courage, eloquence, grace, integrity and patience about an issue which is tearing them apart, have given up on you. Why? Because you have lost their trust. Because your words and promises are empty and your double standards are eye-watering. Because they have been disrespected by you. Neither does the wider Islamic community see the point in turning up to give support anymore. You voted for a motion that was dressed in words of compassion and solidarity and that promised local action, but none of this has materialised. What events have you supported and facilitated? that enabled people to come together to express sadness and solidarity, I'm quoting, in response to what is happening in Gaza. What have you done to assist and nurture our residents during these challenging times? What have you done to combat racism and discrimination in our communities? Perhaps we're not aware of any issues. In that case, what have you done to find out? Several weeks after the motion was passed, a group of us met with the Equality and Diversity Officer. We were shocked that she had been told nothing about the motion or the commitments made to local communities. She has worked a lot with Ukrainian refugees, but the news that there are Palestinians and other residents impacted by the genocide and in need of support had not been conveyed to her. You have made no attempt to put Palestinians on your radar. Talk of addressing racism and discrimination has been swept under the carpet. On July the 18th, the peace motion was passed unanimously, a massive turnaround from previous occasions when it had been brought but rejected out of hand. The Council acted as one, as if a prior agreement had been made between group leaders.
May I bring your statement to a close?
Just coming out, a Council strategy. Therefore, I'm asking you, as individuals with consciences and minds of your own, do you think that the Council should meet the commitments that it made in July? Raise your hand if you agree that those commitments should be kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll repeat the... are you willing to meet our Officer for Refugees with the previous speaker?
Yes, certainly will. As long as I do recall that Amira Labaka, when she spoke here very eloquently back in a previous council meeting in May, I think it was, she was invited to join a committee meeting to discuss issues, and she never heard back. So I do hope that this is a genuine invitation and not... yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Councillor Moss.
Thanks for the statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you for your statements. No factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. Until this evening, were you aware that there was an Officer for Refugees at the Baines Council?
No. Yeah, I was, and as I say, with the Equality and Diversity Officer, we were totally gobsmacked that she knew nothing at all about the commitments made.
Councillor Warren.
No factual questions, thank you.
Pardon? I thought you'd been meeting with the Green Party. You've had a chance to have your factual question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. The Equality and Diversity Officer, not the Green.
Sorry, I thought you'd been meeting with the Green Group. They didn't tell you that there was a refugee officer?
Right, thank you, Robin. Candice Streeter, please.
My name's Candice Streeter and I live in Barthampton. A few weeks ago, a dog in my care became suddenly very unwell and began hemorrhaging. I needed to get into Rosemary Lodge Veterinary Hospital as a matter of emergency. My journey was delayed by 20 minutes because I had to sit in heavy traffic caused by the closure of Sydney Road. While sitting in my car, waiting, the following thoughts went through my head. Firstly, that I was really very angry. Ziggy was lying, bleeding, in the back of my car for longer than necessary so that 26 residents from Sydney Road could be freed from the tyranny of the motor car. That almost 4,000 signatures from other residents against this LTN were of no consequence to this council. That 779 formal complaints against the scheme during the trial period were of no consequence to this council. That the reasoned arguments and observations of engineers, doctors, lawyers, many hundreds of residents, and even our own Liberal Democrat MP were of no consequence to this council. That extensive press coverage regarding the injustice of the scheme, its totally inadequate consultation process, and fundamentally for a trial period has been of no consequence to this council. That most recently, First Bus said, any LTNs push traffic out onto main roads and increase traffic. This delays bus services and is making cars the most attractive option. This was also of no consequence to this council. That I would no longer feel safe walking home after dark on Sydney Road, again, no consequence. I would remind you, as the council, you are supposed to serve, enhance and protect the local environment and its residents. These particular LTNs are increasing pollution and hindering people from going about their lawful business of work, education and recreation. You do not disappear traffic by closing roads, you just divert it onto other roads. To disappear traffic, you have to offer a viable alternative. Where have you done that? There are no criteria that could judge this scheme successful, unless, of course, you're one of the 26 supporters on Sydney Place. My work means I meet people from many different walks of life, and I can tell you that right now, trust in this council and its integrity have been massively damaged.
May I ask you to bring your statement to a close, please?
You might want to reflect on the principle that it never ends well when institutions are allowed to mark their own homework, as both the Post Office and the Church of England have discovered. This entire regime flies in the face of democracy.
Councillor Guy.
Thank you very much for your statement.
I will not be taking any of your questions because you have taken none of ours. Good evening.
Akan Hassan, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Hakan Ehsan and I am the chairman of the Ensley Residents Association. The Ensley development, as we call it, is the one that was on the former MOD site opposite Beckford's Tower, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Many of the several hundred residents that I represent have over the previous few years commented on the lack of any bus provision that goes up past the development to the Park and Ride, the X31 bus. And at our last AGM a few weeks ago, it was suggested that we raise this at the council meeting. I believe there is the possibility of the bus service being looked at, and I would like to speak in favour of any moves to extend the operating hours of it, which currently end at 8 p.m. Every day, and I think even slightly earlier on weekends, or at least on Sundays. I won't go into a great speech about the benefits of this, but obviously our residents all feel that it would help them access nighttime economy in the centre, or visit friends, family, etc., etc. But to quantify the level of support, we also ran a petition that was sent to our membership, and I think currently it stands at about 165 people who have expressed an interest, a wish, rather I should say, that the operating hours be extended, and that if it were extended, that they would use the service, as I mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Would you be willing to meet the current member for Transport to discuss some options?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Moss.
No factual questions, but thank you for the statement. Very timely at a point where we're discussing bus improvements.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for your statement, but no factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. Defer to Councillor Helgers.
Thank you for your statement. Are you aware that the Baines Green Group has been requesting an extension of the operating hours for all the park and ride sites across Bath?
I don't believe I was, no.
Councillor Warren.
No factual questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair.
Jeannie Widdick.
Thank you for having me. My name is Genevieve Wydick, and I attend the Royal High School. My parents do not drive, we don't have a car, so improving access to public transport is crucial to our family and others like ours. I have been walking to school since I enrolled in Year 5, as well as taking the bus in colder months due to asthma. I will often take the bus in and out of town for school, social, and any other activities, including buying groceries, other necessities, and going to the library. We have already seen our council make an amazing difference to the safety of our residents with the closing of Winford Lane. I myself have experienced a dangerous amount of close calls with vehicles on that intersection. The trial of LTNs like that one is already making our neighborhood safer for walkers like me. Building upon that, I believe the council can take further consideration of resident safety and accessibility needs by extending park and ride hours later into the evening. This is a critical change, taking into account the safety of women in particular, who do not always feel safe unaccompanied into the later hours of the evening. My sister, for example, comes home from school on the weekends and has to either walk up Lansdowne Road from the station with her bags or pay for a taxi if she leaves London on a train with non-peak fares. Having accessible, affordable, and reliable transport options is required for Bath residents, especially considering the needs of the elderly and disabled parts of our community. After 8:30 p.m., our only two options are to walk or take a taxi, one being a challenging and even dangerous trip for those who are more vulnerable, while the other can be prohibitively expensive. All in all, extending park and ride times will benefit not only school children such as myself, but also the entirety of our community, residents of all ages and visitors alike. Thank you.
Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. I've no factual questions, but thank you very much for somebody so young to come in and speaking so eloquently at full council. Thank you very much.
Councillor Moss.
No factual questions, but thank you for your statement.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for your statement. No factual questions.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you for your statement. No factual questions.
Councillor Warren.
No factual questions, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. Richard Dawes.
Thank you. Thanks for the ability to speak. Comedia was set up to increase the sum of human happiness, so hopefully we can do that in this chamber today. And you can help us do that with your decision making. I've sent a statement around to councillors. I'm sure you're all busy, so for completeness I'll read that statement and then hopefully give it a little bit of context. So as chairman of Comedia Bath, I'm making a short statement on behalf of the community owned venue. Comedia Bath, trading as the Bonash Limited, trading as Comedia Bath, occupies one of Bath and the South West key historical entertainment venues. We redrew the model for mid-scale venues when we became community-owned in 2019. We've navigated all the challenges since with great resilience. The cultural impact of the venue has been recognised by winning the Bath Life Awards, Creative Bath Awards and Bath Bit Awards in 2024. Since renovating the derelict Bonash Cinema in 2008, Comedia has developed a strong partnership with Baines as a tenant and as a key cultural operator in the city. There are two major issues we're asking for help with. Firstly, Comedia has smaller scale touring acts that have very good access, typically arriving in small vans, access to Westgate Street. That works perfectly. Larger scale touring acts tour the country in coaches and have ongoing major issues visiting Bath. These appear now to be untenable. So we are requesting that access to Westgate Street is offered on the same basis to larger scale artists as it is currently offered to smaller scale acts. If this is not possible, then Bath will no longer be able to host the big name acts that we attract to Comedia. The second point in question is the business rates reduction offered to not-for-profit organisations. It's within the gift of this council to give that to community benefit societies. Many councils across the country do this. With the business rates, which have been given some forgiveness through COVID, that ends to a great extent in March 2025. So we ask that Baines take a similar approach to other councils and offer Comedia Bath the same rates relief that it would offer a charity. Looking at the music acts, typically the small acts would be tribute acts, and they are very welcome to the city. The larger scale acts are less welcome. So Lulu, the Buzzcocks, the Damned, Everything last weekend, Nick Haywood, they are acts that will not come to this city. Our staff are having to take actions that we would not ask. We wouldn't ask of them. In terms of helping the venue, we have ceded control to the community. It is 100% community owned. It is now your asset. Treat it carefully. Moles has gone. Don't let Comedia do the same. Thank you.
Councillor Guy.
Thank you very much for your statement. Will you be willing to meet the Cabinet Member for Finance and the relevant officer to look at the business rates question?
Without a doubt, yes.
Councillor Moss.
Thanks for the statement. Before deferring to Councillor Johnson, I do admire the optimism that says that council meetings will improve the sum of human happiness.
Do you think that the business rates relief that you're requesting for Comedia should be extended to sporting venues across Bath and North East Somerset as well?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because community benefit societies, the biggest model of those are cricket clubs. Given that those organisations are glue that holds society together, I bang the drum for all of those. So yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, it's hugely important that we protect our evening economy. So are there any technical issues that we should be aware of about getting a large vehicle down West Great Street? Or is it just granting you permission and lowering the barriers?
Yeah, well, all we're asking is that a transit van can go down there, no problem at all. They can book to go in during the day. The same welcome is not afforded to coaches. There seems to be, I mean, I'm not going to go into that, you've debated it at length. And the coaches we're talking about, one arrived on Sunday with everything in. It had to go on Westgate buildings. There were people parked across the bay. It was very, very unsatisfactory. It would be very easy to park outside the venue, unload, disappear off somewhere else, and then come back and load in at 10 o'clock at night. All we're asking is, can we do the same with larger scale vehicles as we do currently with small scale vehicles?
Councillor Wright.
Hi, thank you for your statement. What benefit to Comedia's activities would this reduction in rates bring?
Well, our standard rates are about £40,000. So the 80% discount is 80% of that, so high 20s thousand pounds. So if you think of that, it's an awful lot of tickets, an awful lot of pints of beer that have to be sold.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
Yeah, I can't drink that many beers, I'm afraid. The reason that the big acts, I'll try, the reason the big acts don't come, is that purely because of the transport in and out?
Oh, no, we do get big acts, but how venues work are in terms of reputation, and the reputation is now spreading that it's difficult to come to Comedia Bath in a coach. So the big touring agents will say, oh, we'll miss that off the tour because that's difficult. And that's when you can't come back from that.
Thank you. So that will go back to the relevant Cabinet Member. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the public speakers. We're now going to move on to item 8. Thank you, Leslie. Item 8, to appoint an interim executive director. Can I ask Councillor Guy to move that?
Thank you, Chair. So this is the appointment of an interim Executive Director for Resources, which also includes the role of Section 151 officer. I'd like to thank the group leaders and the chairs for accepting this urgent item as appointment of interim Executive Director. So I formally like to move recommendations 2.1, which is a restructuring implementation committee, is recommending that the Council approves the appointment of the interim Executive Director for Resources and Section 151 officer, Mr Christopher Kensler, from the 4th of January 2025 to the 31st of March 2025, with 3 days, for 3 days per week in the first instance. But may I, Chair, take this unusual opportunity to thank Andy Rothery, who is our outgoing Director for Finance. He's been with us for almost 14 years, I believe. He's not able to be with us this evening, but we did thank him at Cabinet. But I'm sure on behalf of the whole Council, we'd like to express his services to the people of Bath and North East Somerset. He's worked exceptionally well, and we wish him all the best with his move to Bristol. I therefore move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Councillor Moss.
Thank you. I'm happy to second this. It's an important appointment to make, particularly at this particular time in the year, as we're heading off into the budget. Can I just have a word of caution when we look at the costs of this particular post? It does stress the importance of making sure that we get an appointment, a timely appointment for the full officer in place. I'd also like to echo Kevin's thanks to Andy, who's going across to Bristol to more challenging times, I'm sure, and to thank him for the work he's done with Baines and the support he's given to us as councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Moss. Does anybody else wish to make a statement? No? I think we can move to the vote. So if you,
I'm always impressed, Chair, with the amount of time technology saves us.
Has everybody voted? Who wishes to vote? Thank you. It's carried. So we'll move on to item 9, using council land for biodiversity net gain. Can I ask Councillor Matt McCabe to move that?
Thank you, Chair. This is a technical motion. You'll remember that we brought in biodiversity net gain as a planning requirement last year ahead of the government. We've used Section 106s to secure the biodiversity from developers, but the slight snag is we can't sign a 106 agreement with ourselves. So this motion both delegates the planning enforcement function for neighbouring authorities, but also allows us to accept a delegated planning enforcement function from neighbouring authorities. It also means that it also says that we can only make an agreement, Section 106 agreement, with a council who've made a reciprocal decision, but that should get round the challenge of the council as a developer effectively delivering biodiversity net gain. So I move the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second to Councillor Ollie Henman?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very glad to second the motion. I'd like to commend the work done by Councillor McCabe and his team. It's a sensible approach to enable Bath and North East Somerset Council land to be used for biodiversity net gain, which will enhance the lives of all our residents by providing much needed habitat restoration in our own local area. The report sets out clearly how the Council would work with neighbouring authorities to overcome a technical obstacle to ensuring access to Council land for improved biodiversity. I'd just like to quickly quote one line from the report. This will enable Council land to be used as a habitat bank resulting in ecological mitigation and 10% biodiversity improvement being provided within the same local authority as the development impacting biodiversity. So, all in all, it provides another strong demonstration of our commitment to a joined-up approach to tackling the climate and ecological emergencies.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, it's an eminently sensible thing to be proposing today. With my scrutiny hat on, I just wonder if some of the detail in 3.6 and 5.4 on the income stream and also the management plan for this could come to the scrutiny panel for climate emergency sustainability.
Councillor Warren?
Yeah, fully support this. It's nice to think that any biodiversity we have to pay for, we get an A in our own coffers and B, improve our own land as well. Just in summing up, I may have missed it in the paperwork, but I just wonder if you've any idea how much money you think we'll make out of this from other as well as our own council, save our own council, but from other areas.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. While the Bath Nest Green Group welcomes this recommendation, we are cognizant of the issues of the ways that developers like to get around new responsibilities. In the case of biodiversity net gain, the developers are known to cut down trees and remove flora and fauna before putting in a planning application. The planning department then makes a recommendation of 10% on this, and the 10% net gain is substantially smaller than the one we are to do. So we are concerned about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else who wishes to make a statement? No? Can I ask Councillor McCabe to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. This motion is simply about the council and putting in a technical process so that we can deliver biodiversity net gain. We'll certainly bring it to scrutiny. Thank you for pointing that out. How much? It's probably easy to tally that afterwards, but what we're looking for in biodiversity net gain is sufficient funds to manage biodiversity on a site for 30 years. So whatever that works out as. Happy to move to the vote, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll move to the vote.
How did you get plus? Oh, for a second, mate.
Yeah, I think. Well, why have I got a plus now? That's all gone a bit wrong, isn't it? I don't know if we voted or not.
Back.
Well, you're the only one who's got a little person now.
Has everybody voted that wishes to vote? Yes, it looks like it. It's carried. Thank you. We move on to item 10, the Corporate Audit Committee Annual Report. Councillor David Biddleston, I think, is going to move that.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to begin by offering my thanks to Councillor Elliott for proposing last year's report, the sterling work done as the previous committee's chair, and also to Councillor Hodge for seconding last year's report as an active member of that committee. As Council knows, this committee has specific powers delegated from full Council, and as such, the Corporate Audit Committee is required to report annually. This is a summary of the work undertaken by the committee during the 2023 to 24 year and is the 19th report to Council since the committee was created. I formally propose that Council note and approve. Council has the reports detailing the work, so I will not discuss them in depth, but I would like to draw Council's attention to some specific items of importance. We are grateful to our previous chair and 151 officer for the work that they did with our external auditors, underlining the necessity of improving work completion rates post-COVID. At the meeting on 15th of March 2023, the external auditor explained the issues being experienced by Grant Thornton, resulting in the need to delay the value for money report and produce a single report for a 2-year period. On the 22nd of November 2023, the external auditor presented their annual report, covering 2 periods, 2021 to 22 and 2022 to 23. There's a lot of 20s in that. Council, we should note the external auditor's finding of significant weakness in arrangements in relation to the dedicated school grant. The key recommendation of the external auditor was that Council needs to address the shortfall in its DSG recovery plan. I would ask Council to recognise that this problem is one that our councils are facing nationally, and that our officers are, in fact, working diligently with the Department for Education to negotiate that recovery plan. Our committee believes that our council's work in this area is as thorough as it can be, despite the present uncertainty as to how national government will deal with the issue at large. The committee also notes the recommendation that this council continues to work closely with the West of England Combined Authority in its implementation of the necessary improvements of its governance. Ongoing work has also included oversight of ACRIS accounts, along with our system for risk management, Treasury management, and our internal audit, which is overseen by a very capable officer, Andy Cox. We would like, finally, to draw your attention to the local Code of Corporate Governance updates agreed by the committee and found in Annex to Appendix 1. Also to the revised terms of reference in Appendix 2 from our review of SIPFA best practice advice. As a result of this work and as part of moving this item, we would like to recommend some minor changes to our terms of reference, and this is found in Appendix 2, and that all comes out of this SIPFA review. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to thank our officers, Jeff Ring and Andy Cox, for patiently guiding committee members, and our independent member, John Barker, who's vital to our understanding of audit with his lifelong experience on that subject. And finally, the same as everybody else this evening, we would like to make a specific thanks to our Section 151 officer, Andy Rothery, and wish him the very best in his new endeavours. I move this item.
Thank you, Councillor Bilston. I believe Councillor George Leach is going to second that.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to second the motion and commend our officers and audit partners on the diligence and oversight work they undertake, which are important safeguards to ensure the healthy functioning of any organisation. We have a strong and resilient risk and audit framework at Baines, and the committee has seen effective use of the freelance defence model, which is widely considered the UK standard for robust risk management. Effective governance and oversight are bedrock for any successful organisation, and I'm pleased it is applied rigorously in Baines. Therefore, I'm happy to second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak? No? So I don't believe we need to sum up. So we'll go to the vote. Thank you.
Yes, we have. Thank you. Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you.
That's carried. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 11, Avon Pension Fund Annual Report, and I believe Councillor Paul Cosley is going to move that.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the second pension annual report that I've presented to this committee, and I'd like to start off by thanking Nick Weaver, who chairs our board, and Sean McGall, who chairs the investment panel, but also to all the members of all three parts of the pension thing, which is the committee, the board and the investment panel, especially to all our independent members that give up a lot of time to advise us, and also our staff who produce a very good outcome for our pensioners. And I think you can see that on the front page of the Avon Pension Fund Committee, bottom paragraph. 140,000 members, 471 employing bodies. So it's a very complex and very convoluted pension fund that we do. It's probably not like anything in the private sector, but it covers a lot of employees from the Baines, Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire unitary authorities. And more importantly, we're managing nearly £6 billion worth of funds. So it is a big deal. And on that, we look at our investment priorities. The council here has asked me to make sure that we put more into responsible investing, and that is something that we've been doing over the 2 years that I've been in chair, and it was actually something that was in progress before under previous members. So we're now fully funded. We're up to 104% funded. That doesn't mean to say I'm going to give you immediately a rebate to the council, because these things go up and down depending on stock markets and things like that. So we have to make sure that we're well funded for a period of time. But also, if we look at that, the chairman's summary, he talks about training, and training is very important. All members of all parts of the pension committee undergo quite rigorous training using Hyman's learning practice modules. And I've just noticed one thing that Nick Weaver asks his people to review their training every year. So that is an improvement that I will start applying or asking our council members to ensure, and I will set the example by doing that myself. So I'm more than happy to present for noting, as asked, to note 2.1, note the committee's annual report to the council, and 2.2, to note the pension board's annual report.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. I believe Councillor Toby-Simon is going to second that.
I formally second this and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Wright.
Thank you. The Barthness Green Group welcomes the hard work of officers at the Asian Pension Fund and recognises the enormity of the work that they undertake. From process controls to the cloud changes to the new demands of central government, the work they undertake to ensure members get their pensions now and in the future years is complex. Over the last year, the issue of where to get the best investment advice has been raised. Presently, reports by Carbon Tracker, Exeter University and the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, the actuaries, raise significant concerns about the quality, regulation and reliability of some mainstream economists' work on quantifying the future economic damages to people and nature. This impacts the reliability of investment consultants' advice to LGPS pension funds. The continued belief that returns will be possible on a planet when temperatures rise beyond 1.5 centigrade are terrifying, and I would hope that the Chair and Vice Chair continue to ensure that the Avon Pension Fund continues to work to get the investment advice from consultants who understand the impact of global heating. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hale.
Yes, Chair, I just wonder whether Councillor Crossley has any observations on what I read the other day regarding the idea of bringing together every pension fund in the country into one big lump. I find that rather concerning.
I'm sure Councillor Crossley will answer that question in summing up. Councillor Toby-Simon?
Perhaps I can speak briefly to that point. That's not quite what the government is proposing. What the government is proposing is that the 8 pools, including the Brunel pool, of which we are a member, it's proposing that the sorry, it's going to.
Can you put it on again now, please?
It's proposing that the pools like Brunel should have increased responsibility for the investment policy of the funds. So this will affect the point also made by Councillor Wright, but it isn't proposing that the pools be amalgamated. It's giving the 8 pools increased responsibility for managing the investments within a strategy set by the individual funds such as ours. There's been a lot of poor reporting of this, but we will continue to have responsibility for setting an investment strategy that sets out the types of investment we want to make, but actually managing those investments will, in future, go to, if the government's proposal is accepted, will be run by the pool.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Can I ask Councillor Crossley to sum up?
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright is regularly challenging us on our investment advisors, and we welcome that challenge. But we are, as a committee, broadly very content with the advice we're getting. It is enabling us to be one of the leading environmental pension funds in the country, which doesn't mean to say that we're complacent. We're looking to improve it, and then hence we get the challenge, which we welcome. Barry said about one big lump. I think Toby answered that there isn't plans to make one big lump. And actually, every time you do a merger, first of all, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of work, and that is not necessarily giving you a benefit in the long run. I think the problem with our current parliamentarian who's leading this, I've forgotten her name, is it Rachel Reeves? I think she's fixated on the Canadian model, which is just one huge the teachers fund is just huge, and she was looking to see how she could replicate that here. I think she's met with various pension funds and is now of the opinion, sorry, Alan, not Barry. She's now of the opinion that one big pool or a very small number of big pools is not necessarily the way to go. But she is challenging us rigorously, as are a lot of people. But our principal aim is always to pay the pensions of our pension holders and stakeholders. And as long as we're doing that, I think that's what our members want from us.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. We're now going to move to the vote. Sorry. One person. We're still waiting for one person to vote. Is anybody having problems with voting? Okay, Councillor Romero. May I should leave the room, Mr. Councillor Crossley. Thank you. Can we redo the vote? Can we redo the vote? Is that a suggestion? It is just for noting. So we've noted that actually Councillor Crossley pressed Dina's button by mistake. So it's carried. Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 12, the Treasury Management Monitoring Report, and Councillor Lucy Hodd is going to move that.
Thank you, Chair. The report before Council sets out the Treasury Management performance for the first 6 months of this financial year, prepared in accordance with the SIPFA Code of Practice. This quarterly report provides insights into the Council's borrowing and investment activities. These are aimed at maintaining liquidity while aligning with our overall financial strategy. It's an interesting read, giving all the key indicators set against the overall economic context. Thanks to sound financial management by the officer team, we're able to again report a stable position with all key indicators within acceptable parameters. We're well within borrowing limits, our portfolio credit rating is AA or very high, and we had a minimum of £15.3 million in liquid cash during the period. Our interest rate exposure risk continues to be very low, and our financing risk is much lower than required at each band we measure. Our early repayment risks are on or below limits, and we're under-borrowed by about £32 million. In terms of investments, our average rate of return on operational investments in the period was 5.12%, just above the benchmark rate used by the Council at 5.07%. And our strategic investments, which include ESG, environmental, social and governance funds, earned 4.35%, which is just above our budgeted return. Looking forward, our interest and capital borrowing costs for 2024-25 are forecast to be £1.05 million under budget, due to higher than budgeted return on investments and because some capital spend has been reprofiled, helping to relieve pressure on the revenue budget. Finally, it just remains to say thank you to the officer team for all their hard work and their willingness to provide and adjust such detailed information in a form that we can all understand. I'm sure we all appreciate that stable Treasury management is fundamental to the underlying stability of this Council, in which regard Baines would be the envy of many other local authorities. I move recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 that the report and indicators are duly noted.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. I believe Councillor Toby Simon is going to second that.
Formally second to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Do we have anybody who wishes to make a statement? No, so we'll move to the vote. He's reserved. Oh, no. Do you wish to speak now? No? Right. I will move to the vote. Has everybody voted it wishes? Paul, you haven't touched Dina's button again, have you? That's all right then. Right, that's carried. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to item 13, Constitution minor updates, and I believe Councillor David Wood is going to move that.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank the officers and also the members of the Constitutional Working Group for their work so far. The amendments here tonight represent some very minor updates and tidying up for our Constitution. A fuller and more substantial report will follow in due course. I'd like to move recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3.
Thanks to Councillor Wood. Councillor Sean Hughes, are you going to second that?
Yes, I'm more than happy to second this one.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak? No, we'll go to the vote then. Thank you. Right, I think that's carried. Thank you very much. We move now to item 14, the Remuneration Panel Allowances Report, and that's going to be moved by Councillor Dye.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll keep this brief. I'd like to personally thank the members of the Independent Remuneration Panel and emphasise the term independent and for taking this issue off our hands. I must also flag up the recommendation is relating to, with the point related to the chair of the Corporate Audit Committee. Now, obviously refers to the Audit Committee, as a Corporate Audit Committee annual report early in the agenda highlights. Therefore, I am more than happy to move recommendations 2.1 to 2.4, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Councillor Robin Moss.
Thank you. I'm happy to second this, and it is again stressing the point that this is a recommendation coming from the independent panel. And without wanting to undercut the recommendations, I think there are some wider issues on councillor remuneration that we do need to consider and probably through our various political groups make representation on. And that is the shift of resources away from scrutiny to executive members. And also, we do need to tackle the issue or make representation about the issue of allowing councillors to contribute to the pension fund. And I say that looking round the chamber, and I know that there are a number of councillors who are working and probably find it difficult to keep full-time work going just simply because of the responsibilities. And the more responsibilities you take on, the more time, the less time to actually go and earn proper money, in inverted commas. So I think it would be, while I am recommending support for this report, it would be wrong not to mention some of the underlying issues in recruiting people to stand for and become councillors to make us more representative as a body.
Thank you. Councillor Helgess.
Thank you, Chair. And the Green Group thank officers for all the hard work on this report. However, we are still keen to see further work done on this to ensure that Bain sits in alignment with other unitary authorities. It is clear that the representation of younger, diverse, economically challenged members of our community are unable to afford to be councillors. If representation of everyone we serve matters, then greater work needs to be conducted to ensure that it's financially viable for them to take the time to become councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crossley.
I would like to absolutely endorse the thoughts of Councillor Moss. We used to have the ability to contribute to pensions as councillors. It was a right that was taken away from us by Eric Pickles, I think sadly when it was in the coalition government, but I'm not sure, but it was Eric Pickles' responsibility. And I would urge Robin Moss to talk with his colleagues in government to see if that is something they can look at to restore, because I think councillors put a lot of effort into their community, and as Councillor Hedges said just now, we need to make sure that this chamber looks like and reflects the community that we serve.
Mm-hmm. I've got one last speaker, Councillor Jackson.
Is that on? Yes, right. I was thinking of a debate a long time ago when we had a Conservative administration in this chamber, and I sort of looked round the serried ranks of rather older people in suits sitting on this side of the chamber and started calculating what it was costing them to sit there in this very long council meeting. Of course, I have no idea what the earnings were. I could only sort of set a minimum estimate. But I reckon that most people sitting there, or any of us, were only being remunerated to the extent of about a quarter of what we could otherwise earn outside. In short, we don't do this job for the money, but it is very difficult if we don't have adequate allowances to enable, as has already been said, a greater diversity, younger people, disabled people who may have extra expenses and so on. I'm looking at the page 133, paragraph 61, Chair of the Council. I was the last Chair of the Council before COVID. I most certainly did not do 300 engagements. I will go home, get my diary out and find out how many it was. But each engagement could take 4 hours or more. So I don't feel that it's appreciated by this gesture just how much time and effort goes into being chair or vice chair. And it doesn't send out a very good message, because this is the one role in the council that transcends politics, represents all of us, whatever our gender, age, and so on. And I think it's a mistake, this, quite frankly, even though, as I said, we don't do it for the money, but we do have demands on time, we might need childcare, all kinds of things, and we certainly need, when looking after royalty, to be well scrubbed up. And my mother used to query sometimes what my father had been doing as a customs and excise officer in Liverpool, and he would say, I'm not paid for what I do, I'm paid for what I know. And the fact that if there's any crisis, there's Tate and Lyle, there's Cunard, all kinds of shiploads coming in that could cause a crisis, that I'm there and I go out. And it's much the same with us. I got a call at 10 o'clock at night once from well, quite recently from a frantic resident. I answered, I did what I could, and I'm sure we all would. So I have my doubts about these paragraphs relating to chair and vice chair, and I'm certainly heartily behind Councillor Moss that we need to do something.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Just very lastly, Councillor Hale.
Yeah, very quickly, Chair. Just picking up on the role of the chair, I think we have demeaned the role of the chair by removing the transport to get the chair to wherever they have to be. I think it's totally wrong that as the person who is representing this council, apolitically, in a whole variety of ways, either has to go on a bus, perhaps cycle if they haven't got a car, or drive themselves. And I feel that it is totally undermining the status of the office that you currently hold.
Thank you, Councillor Hale. Can I ask Councillor Guy to sum up, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. And actually, I agree with most of the comments that have been said, and I will pass that on to the Chair of the Independent Remuneration Panel. I fully agree with the pension comments. We should be allowed to join the pension. Obviously, members of the Chamber are aware, and this is what I personally think is very wrong, because it doesn't happen in Parliament. The Independent Remuneration Panel look at the hours that we put in for each individual job, and then they come up through a set national formula about what our allowance should be. But in that process, they deduct a considerable percentage, which is to do with we should be volunteering our hours. And so they take off about 20% of those hours and don't pay us for them. And they don't do that for any other branch of government. So that's something that I think nationally we should be campaigning on, because I think it goes to many of the points that have raised about bringing people in from different backgrounds. You know, we're disadvantaged people, and one way of fixing that would be taking away that voluntary reduction. I move the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll move to the vote.
Five in favour and 3 abstentions. Thank you.
3 against, isn't it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's this stupid thing. It's okay. 3 against. You're right. Yes. Excuse me. Thank you.
That's been carried. Thank you. So we now move on to item 15, a motion from the Green Party. Councillor Joanna Wright.
Sorry, Chair, if we declared an interest, do we have to leave the chamber?
Landlord. He's a landlord. Yeah, he's a landlord, yeah. Michael Hewitt has said no, you don't need to leave the chamber. Right, shall we move on, Councillor Wright, to the motion? No, Jim, you can stay.
Thank you. Bath and North East Somerset is a beautiful place, rich in history and culture. But our community is increasingly threatened by the harsh reality of a housing crisis. In the past decade, house prices in our area have skyrocketed by over 72%. Whilst we appreciate the economic benefits of tourism, we cannot ignore the toll it takes on our residents. With over 1,000 Airbnbs listings in our city, the availability of homes for long-term residents is dwindling, forcing rents up by 5.2% in the past year. Families are being pushed out of the very communities they love, and we cannot stand idly by while this happens. A strong community is built on the principle that everyone deserves a place to call home. We must ensure that opportunity and stability are accessible to all. We cannot allow our city to become a playground for the wealthy while locals struggle to afford basic housing. Let's be clear, affordable housing and social homes serve different needs. While affordable housing may provide options slightly below market rates, many of these homes remain out of reach for the majority. In contrast, social homes offer deeper security for those in greatest need. Let's prioritise both. ensuring everyone can access a safe and stable living environment. We must create affordable options for everyone, young families starting their journey, individuals seeking stability, or older residents. Our goal must be clear: to foster a thriving community where everyone has a chance to succeed. Furthermore, we must discuss housing and collaboration. If people are pushed out of Bath and North East Somerset, they must have reliable access to jobs, schools and services. A comprehensive approach is needed, one that acknowledges the interconnectedness of housing, transportation and community planning. Yet we face significant challenges. Our relationship with the West of England Combined Authority is strained, as the recent Best Value notice highlights. We cannot let these hurdles silence our obligation to residents. We must rise above these challenges and commit to action. In this motion, we urge our Cabinet Member for Built Environment and Sustainable Development to advocate for the power to introduce rent controls in Bath and North East Somerset. We wish to consult on capping the numbers of short-term rentals in high-demand areas, prioritising the needs of residents above all else. Strengthening planning requirements for rentals exceeding 90 days is crucial to safeguarding long-term housing. Additionally, we must call for an end to the right to buy scheme, which has decimated our social housing stock. The availability of social housing is vital. We need the ability to borrow and build more social homes, ensuring that everyone has a secure place to live. We also explore incentives for refurbishing and renting long-term empty properties. We cannot allow valuable homes to sit unused while so many are in desperate need. Together, we can ensure that Bath and North East Somerset is a place where everyone can thrive and have a home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Helgess, are you going to second that motion?
Thank you, Chair. Bath and North East Somerset is a wonderful place to live, but how can we take pride in that when so many are being forced out of our community? I know families with young children who desperately want to stay in the city they love but have been uprooted. Parents juggling school runs, childcare and work in Bath are now commuting every day because they can no longer afford to live here. But it's not just families. Young professionals trying to establish their futures and older residents hoping to downsize are also being squeezed out. It's a crisis affecting everyone. Housing costs in Bath are out of control. Social housing, once a lifeline, is dwindling and private rents are climbing by over 5% a year. Add to that over 1,000 short-term lets catering to tourists and the picture becomes clear. Bath's housing market prioritises visitors, profiting landlords and homeowners. Meanwhile, people are left without homes. Rent controls are no longer optional. They're essential to keep Bath livable for the people who power this city. We need to cap short-term lets in high-demand areas and strengthen planning rules for properties rented out over 90 days. We must also be bold about social housing. The right to buy scheme has stripped us of too many homes and it's time to end it. Councils must have the power to build more social homes and empty properties must not stand idle when people are in desperate need. This is about more than housing. It's about community, fairness and our future. Let's ensure Bath and North East Somerset remains a place where people don't just visit but can build their lives, their futures and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Helgess. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Chair. Affordable housing, or the lack of it, is something I'm sure we all take very seriously here in this chamber. This administration is looking to boost affordability numbers as part of our manifesto commitment to build hundreds of council-owned units per year. This Labour government seems to be heading in the right direction as well. Yes, we know there's an affordability crisis in Bath. Yes, right to buy, in my view, was a policy designed to stop councils building houses, as well as move that housing stock into the private sector. But Labour have said that they're going to change that. Yes, there is pressure from whole houses being lost to short-term letting, but to blame the whole sector? No. Simply cutting and pasting National Green Party policy into a council motion does not help us tackle the unique situation that we have here in Bath and North East Somerset, a World Heritage City that cannot expand nor develop upwards. We have plots ready to develop, but which are being land banked by developers. We have 2,000 units with permission not being developed. We have buildings that could be converted, but which we cannot compulsory purchase because the bar is often set too high. The leader has written to the Deputy Prime Minister, and we have lobbied for the powers we need. We're working very closely with the entire development community on creating innovation in Baines, and we are bringing the Council's draft housing plan to scrutiny later in January. So I would say the Green Party should withdraw this motion and instead take part in that scrutiny process of the Council's housing plan in the new year. Because I can tell you that what I'm not going to be doing is writing to anyone asking for rent controls. because I believe that there are often unwanted consequences, and because I also believe that the Labour government has got it broadly correct with its approach to boosting renters' rights. I also have no intention of attempting to develop policies that we have no powers to implement or lumbers the council or the sector with new charges. Let the planning system, with its public input, decide whether a building can change its use from residential to short-term letting. This will be achieved if Labour brings forward the proposed new planning use class for short-term lets that the Tories consulted on earlier this year. The council is already very good at bringing empty properties back onto the market. I have a massive list that I don't have the time to tell you about, but essentially a combination of council tax increases and shed loads of advice and help and even cash to bring an empty property back. But surely it would be better to encourage residents to report empty properties on the council website. And I'm not going to ask the leader to write again to ask government for something that the Labour Party have already said they want to do. We have asked for more CPO powers, powers to address land banking and powers to challenge viability assessments. This is far more important for securing affordable housing here in Baines and particularly in Bath. So, with the Labour government going in the right direction, considering the unique local issues that we have already been in touch with government about, and with the fact that we are bringing forward the council's housing plan in January, I'm saying that this motion goes in the wrong direction, targets the wrong things, and fails to address our unique circumstances. So if this motion is not withdrawn, it should be rejected, and you should choose, if you choose to vote this down, as I'm saying, there's an opportunity to scrutinise the council's proposed way forward in the new year.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Councillor Warren?
Yeah, thank you. There's a fair bit of there. I agree with Councillor Wright, but sadly probably more that I don't in some ways. And I can't see an improvement with the rentals, with the way things are against landlords at the moment. It doesn't encourage private landlords to get into the market. And I think there's a lot being sold now, and the less houses there are, the more the rents are going to go up, which is going to be very unfortunate. You know, personally, we keep them like we can, and we've had some tenants, we've got 2 flats there, 11 and 12 years. So if you look after them, they look after you, and I think that's the way it works. The right to buy is a difficult one, because if people have been paying rent for their social home for years and years and years, I think they should have the right to buy it. The only thing I think maybe went wrong in the past is when you know, sometimes I've been speaking to Keir about this a little while back, that some people have moved from Foxhill to a nice new house in Mulberry Park, the one being worth X and the other one being worth X times 2, and they can buy X times 2 for the same price. They can buy the house for a hugely reduced amount and then sell it for full market value, which doesn't work. And I agree with the right to buy, but I think going back in time, it should have been 1 for 1. So if one sold, there should be another one built for that. If that was the case, it could have worked well. And I credit Keir, I believe they're trying to do that. So, yeah, I'm sorry, this is something I can't support this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Moss.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting motion in that it identifies many of the problems that we all agree with, but I'm not entirely sure that the solutions that are outlined here are the correct ones. And also, it seems to be us talking to ourselves when there's actually consultation out on a number of government bills that address some of the issues that are here. So I think rather than the Green Group anticipating what might happen, they might actually want to take part in that consultation. Because I think the government recognises that there is a broken housing market. It's a key objective of the Labour government to address housing issues. There are a number of proposals out for consultation, and we're also all, of course, having discussion on house building and the local plan and some of the maybe the consequences that we're less happy with. And I'll just say a couple of things, and agreeing with Tim as well. The right to buy, the issue with right to buy isn't the principle of right to buy. The issue is you're taking houses out of the social housing market. And as long as you are replacing those houses like for like, then giving people the opportunity, if they want to get into the housing market, is not something that we should be disagreeing with or stopping people from doing. And it's interesting, the idea that tenants who have been tenants for a number of years therefore have a right to buy a property. If you're a tenant, you don't have to do the major repairs and all the other stuff that comes with owning a property. And surely the extension for that is a right to buy in the private sector as well, if you're paying effectively the mortgage of the owner. So I don't think that the proposals here are ones that will work. But I will say, and if it's going to scrutiny, is that the Labour government is very clear about devolving responsibilities to local councils for dealing with local situations. And if we can have policies, thought-out policies with thought-out consequences, there is no reason why Bath and North East Somerset Council shouldn't be making proposals as to how to deal with our housing market. But I'm afraid that press release headlines as a consequence of a motion is not going to solve that.
Thank you, Councillor Moss. Can I ask Councillor Wright to sum up?
Brilliant, thank you. It's really interesting to hear how this motion is a press release headline when many young people today in this area can no longer even afford to rent a room and have to sleep on couches and sofa surf to just get by each day. We know that there's a massive problem in this area for people to find housing that is dry, that is without mould, that doesn't have problems, and that many families, even well-to-do families now, can no longer afford to rent. I'm delighted to hear that Councillor McCabe is now working extensively with the Labour government on this process. But I do challenge the right to buy and the issue taken that what we need to do is if somebody wants to buy something, replace it like for like. That hasn't happened, and that hasn't happened since the days of Thatcher when she decided to remove that right. So we have created a problem over the last 40 years that has left our descendants in a terrible situation with very little opportunities in even which to get on the housing ladder. And what this motion sought to begin was to bring to the forefront of this council the very issues that face so many people from so many different parts of this community, a place to have a warm home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. We're now going to move to the vote.
Okay. Sorry.
Joe, can you announce the result, please?
Yes, that motion falls. That's 40 against, 4 abstentions and 4 in favour. The motion falls.
Thank you, Joe. We now move on to item 16, motion from the Lib Dem Party, the bus service. Councillor Fiona Gorley.
I hope I'm in good company whilst proposing this motion, as both the Conservative and Green parties have called for a bus fare cap to remain at £2. For context, Baines has limited transport powers and funds, as responsibility for regional transport, including buses, and the money from government sits with the West of England Combined Authority. The current Wycombe Mayor's approach to transport decision-making and spending, often undertaken with a minimal input from the 3 local authorities, is widely known. Whilst we remain committed to working together in the best interests of all our residents, Waker staff have been in a challenging position with high turnover at senior levels. We hope the approach can evolve with the change in mayoral leadership. At the same time, our chief bus operator First is a commercial company with no obligation to run unprofitable routes, underserved communities, or even buses mainly for school children. However, in our direct talks, First seems willing to listen and look for solutions, maybe because franchising is looming over the horizon. The Wickham Mayor's main priority has been to make frequent buses run even more frequently along major routes and in urban areas. He did find funding for a patchwork of West local community buses, including those championed by hard-working volunteers and councillors of the Chew Valley, Paulton and Keynsham. Interestingly, out of the 9 West local bus routes across the region, it appears 6 go through the Wickham Mayor's own North East Somerset and Hanham parliamentary constituency. But there were no funds to extend the Two Valleys bus from Paulton to Camerton in the Froome and East Somerset. WECA's main strategy for rural areas is Westlink, an on-demand minibus service which has been problematic from the start. WECA has decided to spend £4 million a year on Westlink across the region. Compare this with the £2 million a year Baines needed to continue its supported bus network. WECA has tried very hard to improve very poor value for money by reducing the size of the zones. Usage has now gone up to around 2 passengers per vehicle per hour. It's not surprising there are so few passengers. Having launched the scheme with no consultation or publicity in 2023, after 2 years, the Wickham Mayor is still asking his communications team to refine the marketing strategy. On to bus ticketing. The government is reducing the bus subsidy, so operators may put up tickets from £2 to around £3. Unlike the mayors of West Yorkshire, Liverpool City and Greater Manchester, who have decided to use their BSIP funds to maintain the ticket cap, WECA has not yet, despite just having received another £13.5 million in BSIP funding. Our local authority transport leaders have repeatedly asked to look at better ways to use BSIP funding in terms of value for money and social benefit. But WECA have seemed unwilling to do this. Despite no approval from the transport leaders, WECA initially set aside £8.9 million for the free birthday bus scheme. Now they're rolling forward another £3.8 million for another year because there's money left over. So far, 90% of the beneficiaries have been in urban areas, 57% in Bristol, 9 out of the top 10 routes in Bristol, only 1 in Bath and none in North East Somerset. That money could have been far better spent on supported bus service network or reducing fares for all, particularly those on the lowest incomes such as young people, job seekers and apprentices. So to the importance of this motion. With the reduction in government subsidy, the increase in £3 will affect poorer residents who are already struggling with the cost of living crisis. People in urban areas often have the option to walk, cycle or use a scooter to get to work or education. However, these are not available for rural residents, who may also face the inconvenience of taking multiple buses due to the lack of direct routes into our towns and cities. For older people, the bus pass remains unchanged. But for children and adults, increasing the bus fare by 50% will push more people into driving cars and increase pollution and congestion. An average commuter who takes the bus every working day of the week could face an extra £448 bill because of the change made by this government. Affordable buses are an essential service and we all share the need to reduce car journeys for health, environment and economic reasons. We urge WECA not to squander more taxpayers' money on free birthday buses, but to use the funds to support ticket reduction for all passengers, regardless of when they were born or where they live. Colleagues, from your many helpful responses to my Send Me Your Bus Problems email, it is clear that the cuts in bus routes and gaps in service affect many of our residents across Bath and North East Somerset.
Thank you, Councillor Corley.
Last sentence. Last paragraph. One of the biggest campaigns in the coming years must be to have more powers to decide the bus routes that our residents need, not just where they're commercially available. We want to work with WECA to look closely at the opportunity that franchising and other schemes can provide. We hope that this can be achieved with a new regime in WECA after May next year.
Thank you. Councillor Jess David, you're going to second that, please?
Thank you. I'm delighted to second this motion, which addresses an issue that impacts so many lives in our community, the need for affordable bus services. Public transport is vital to our communities, especially in rural and outer urban areas. We all agree that we need regular, reliable and affordable bus services, ones that are accessible to everyone and provide a real alternative to travelling by car. And simply put, affordable flat fares encourage more people to use the bus and ensure the long-term sustainability of our services. Over several years, I've campaigned to save the number 8 bus service, which is a lifeline for residents in the Moorlands Estate and Kingsway in Odddown. It connects people to work, medical appointments, shopping and the wider community, but unfortunately in recent years the service has been severely reduced with cuts to its frequency and it is now no longer operating on Sundays and public holidays. I hear constantly from residents of all ages who depend on the service about how its decline has impacted them and how critical it is for staying connected. I'm concerned that any increase in fares will further push passenger numbers down, making the service even less viable. We've seen how crucial affordable fares are. Nationally, the £2 fare cap led to a significant increase in bus usage, with some areas seeing a rise of up to 30%. When fares are affordable, people are more likely to leave their cars at home, which not only eases traffic congestion but also helps reduce carbon emissions and improve air quality. For communities like ours in Outer Bath, the £2 fare is especially important. It makes bus travel more accessible to families and those on lower incomes, many of whom rely on the number 8 service. And so I fully support the actions outlined in this motion, including the call for the Weckham Mayor to use the available BSIP funding to maintain the £2 fare cap and also to urgently progress bus service franchising in the region. This is key to providing the services our communities need and deserve, and I urge all colleagues to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Romero?
Thank you, Chair. What is happening to our local bus services under the current Weckham Mayor is a tragedy for local residents in rural, but also those living on the outskirts of Bath itself. I would like to draw Council's attention to just one route, the number 42, which used to go through Southdown, picking up patients and staff en route to the RUH. It was regularly full and many users expected additional buses to be put on this route. However, despite its popularity, the number 42 was scrapped over a year ago. There seems no logic to this decision, as there is no real viable alternative going direct to the hospital, and the route remains very much desired, as can be evidenced by the petition that we Southdown councillors have launched and which we plan to present to the current Weckham Mayor. Obviously, if anyone watching here or watching online is interested in supporting our petition, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Romero. Councillor Hurst?
Thank you, Chair. This bus issue is probably the issue that Steve and I at our weekly ward surgery in Odddown get the most comments about. People are really fed up with the challenge of the current bus services and are frustrated at us as a council for not being able to do very much about it and feel like First Bus don't listen. We've got a whole list of problems that affect our ward. So the number 22, which will get the ever-growing number of people living in HMOs as students in our area to the university under threat. The 42, as you've heard, cancelled. The number 4, reduced in frequency, and ever-confusing changes by First Bus in merging 3A, 3B, 4, 4A, 4B, and a bewildering challenge for people to navigate. People trying to get to St Martin's Hospital, their bus stops and routes have been changed. And this is a major community hospital serving our population, and it's a failure. We've got to stand up and do something about our public transport. We are doing our best to give people alternatives to car journeys by working on safe cycle routes, on improving pedestrian opportunities, and where we're really letting down our residents is delivering on a bus service that works. And sadly, that's not in our gift. Sadly, the mucking around with it and changing the flat fare was a retrograde step. We've got to do better. So come on, support this motion and do something positive for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Councillor Henman?
Thank you, Chair. I very much agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it's important also to remember earlier today when we had the public speakers in the chamber, we did hear about lack of provision for buses and leaving communities cut off, particularly younger people. This is a key plank to decarbonising transport. We've talked many times about the importance of tackling the climate emergency, and public transport really needs to be at the heart of that. So I would also very much urge people to back this. We need to enable affordable, regular and reliable service. And the additional point I would add is around the regional authority here, the WECA authority. We need to see a much more strategic approach from WECA, fairness across urban and rural areas, and a more joined-up approach across the area. And I would very much strongly support the idea of bus service franchising as a much better way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henman. Councillor Moss.
Thank you very much. An interesting motion. But I'd say it's not helpful, it's not appropriate, and it's not accurate. I think in particular, let's understand that WECA isn't the mayor. WECA is actually the mayor and the leaders of the principal authorities. And that's identified within the letter that came up from DLUC, the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, the best value notice that came through in March this year. And I'll quote directly from the first concern. The poor state of professional relationships between the West of England Combined Authority Mayor and the representatives of the constituent members of the authority, which is impacting partnership working. There's stuff to share around, not only with the Mayor, but also with the councils as well. But we do have the situation where 3 days ago, there was an announcement of £13.5 million bus service improvement grants coming to WECA, and money's going across the country, and it would be a lot more useful to be having a discussion here about what representations have been made to the other, to WECA, including the Mayor, what's the costs, what the proposals for actually taking the £3 cap down to a £2 cap. I was up in Manchester last week talking about devolution and finance, and Andy Burnham was making it quite clear at that meeting that he was using that money to bring the cap down from 3 to 2, and that is precisely in line with what Angie Rayner was talking about at the Local Government Association conference. Delegate funding and responsibility down to councils so that we decide where that money goes, and if bringing the cap from 3 to 2 appropriate, that's great, that's appropriate. So I get the discussion about when we have an election next year, about will that create a reset with a new mayor. But I'd say that discussion has to go further to look at governance and also area, because very clearly the constitution for the West of England Combined Authority, set as it was 10 years ago, isn't working. And that's a constitutional issue as much as it is an issue for the individuals. So I'd say that it's a shame that this motion isn't withdrawn. I'd say that if you're going to have good professional relationships between the West of England Combined Authority Mayor and the representatives, putting this motion forward is not going to help, particularly after announcements of more money. And let's work on that funding that is coming in to go to what we believe is where it's best placed. Labour Group will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Chair, following on from what Councillor Moss has said, I sometimes think that the only transport strategy which the party opposite have is to make things as unpleasant as possible for car drivers by parking charges, which we're shortly going to debate, by potholes, by these livable neighbourhood areas and so on and so forth. But the crucial matter as far as making the bus system work is to get people onto the buses and using it. I don't actually recognise the description that's being given. The buses that I travel on, in and out of Redstock, are very crowded for much of the day. And I would like to see the money used, the sort of overage money here, on better bus shelters, accurate timetables, proper timetabling, and areas which are clearly a bus stop. and not parked up so that the bus can't get into the pavement to let disabled people off. And I feel really quite strongly about this. This motion is not going to achieve anything. It's just going to make feelings worse. And yes, I would thoroughly agree. We are all WECA, and we have got to make the bus system work if we're going to have any impact on climate emergency. Councillor Johnson and Councillor Hardman, of course, can't really blow their own trumpet, but they have managed to get a community bus system running through Poulton Parish Council, and I can't support this motion as it is because it won't work. I would have liked to see something about Baines and WECA supporting community initiatives like that and community buses which run where our residents want them to go. And I think the point about the 42 bus is extremely relevant. Why we can't work with the health authorities to get a better service there, I don't know. It can all be done. I spent the weekend in Portsmouth, and they have an excellent bus service, both within the island and out into the rural areas. It can be done. Just sit down, all of you, together and come up with a proper strategy that meets our residents' needs.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Warren?
It's quite fun, actually, tonight. We've got the Liberal Democrats having to go with Labour, and I'm sort of sitting quite happy in the middle here, so it's quite fun tonight. Just a couple of things that my colleagues over here seem to forget, and you might pick me up on this when you sum up, but I do believe that you did cut all of the North East Somerset subsidies a few years ago, so just a reminder on that one. Another thing, just to make this even, I love the idea of franchise. I tried to introduce franchises when I was Deputy Mayor back in 2017. The bus companies aren't that keen, because it means they've got to take on some bits that don't work. But I do think that could work. And why it was set up, just to enable to Councillor Moss, the way that it was all worded, and WECA was set up all those years ago, and I've heard, by the way, I've been blamed from the President Mayor at the time, it's all Tim Warren's fault because of the way he did the deal. And it's got my name at the bottom, and I'm quite proud of the way we did the deal. And the reason the deal was done like that was just in case we happened to get a mayor that wouldn't work with the authorities. So that was protection then for the authorities, because if that wasn't the case, you may get someone that was, say, Baines-based or Bristol-based, for instance. And if the Bristol-based one happened to take everything to Bristol, and Baines and South Gloucester got nothing, we could veto that. So it didn't happen. That was the reason behind that. And I actually think it was the right reason. It's just unfortunate that since 2021, I've got to get it right, I think that the Mayor and the Council leaders haven't seemed to work that well together, which I think is a shame, because Baines WECA could have, and should have, and potentially will, work very well again, which I hope so. And actually, I go around in circles and sort of fall out with everybody now, I can support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Guy?
Thank you, Chair. On the point of working well together, I am always more than happy to sit round the table with other leaders and the Mayor to discuss any issue. The problem is, the Mayor, and he's constantly said this on radio and on TV, he doesn't believe in having pre-meetings to discuss things. So you can't get round the table to talk to him about issues. So I will also quote the chair who's chairing the Best Practice Board at the moment, which is brought in because we're kind of under special measures, who's a Labour appointee, and she has said specifically that relationships should improve dramatically after the next election. And that is her saying that, not me. Plus, with regards to this motion, I'm more than happy to discuss with the current Mayor and our leaders, Bristol and South Gloss, to use that government money, and that government money is very welcome. And there's a lot of promising things being said by central government around buses. So I dispute Councillor Warren's point that this is Lib Dems having a go at Labour, because it is definitely not. I would welcome using that £13 million, just as they've done in Manchester, to subsidise our bus services here, to keep charges at £2, and I will formally request that WECA does that.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. A report from Friends of the Earth shows that since 2010, Baines has lost 60% of its bus services, the worst decline in the WECA region. This is a clear sign of poor management of public transport, leaving those who depend on it, elderly residents, disabled people and young people, without essential services. The Best Value Notice exposed the broken relationship between this council and WECA, which has certainly contributed to the decline. Freedom of information requests from March 2024, when the Best Value Notice called for better collaboration, revealed that not a single email has been exchanged between Baines and WECA about buses. This motion claims to prioritise Baines bus users, yet under this administration, funding was cut for all rural bus services in Greater Baines while continuing to support buses in Bath. Furthermore, it would be telling to know how much Baines paid into WECA's transport levy. In this context, it's hard to see this motion as anything more than a distraction from months of inaction and a reaction to Labour's recent 50% national bus fare hike to gain publicity. Neither of these parties has a real plan to solve the challenges facing Baines transport, and a fare cap is too parochial. A fare cap is only effective if buses turn up, and right now they don't. Meetings with student leaders at Bath universities frequently report ghost buses that never arrive, while rural areas are consistently overlooked, often lacking even the basics like pavements, benches or timetables at bus stops. The problem goes beyond fares. If we fix the system as a whole, we can then determine a sustainable ticket price. At present, we don't even know if £2 is sustainable. Should it be £1, £10? Without WECA's franchising report, any decision is guesswork and risks pouring more money into a failing system. The solution lies in collaboration. This council needs to stop playing politics and start working with WECA, other councils, bus operators and local communities. A practical step forward would be to establish a passenger transport executive. This would bring accountability to the system and give the passengers a voice. It would also pave the way for franchising, which this motion proposes and the Greens fully support. Franchising offers a real long-term fix. In Greater Manchester and London, franchising has proven a long-term solution. It integrates ticketing across different operators and transport modes, creates fair daily fare caps and holds bus companies accountable for providing reliable services. This council must stop playing politics and start focusing on real solutions.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. My last speaker, Councillor McCabe.
Gosh, I'm slightly sort of words here. When I was the Cabinet Assistant for Sustainable Transport, I was shocked to discover that when I was talking to my neighbouring authorities, our neighbouring authorities, that they'd had a 30% increase in support of bus services. That after the war started and after lockdown, costs had gone up. They were a third more they were paying for their bus services. WECA agreed a deal that was 100% more. It doubled the cost of our supported bus services. The cost of the three authorities, it doubled. And nobody could give me an answer as to why that was the case. So I don't think we got a fair deal in that. I don't think the negotiations were strong enough. I have a very good working relationships with Bristol. I have very good working relationships with South Gloucester. The three leaders, I've seen them all working well together. And when we came forward with a plan that all three leaders from the three authorities came forward with, the Mayor vetoed it because he didn't know anything about it and he didn't want to agree to it. You talk about emails between WECA and Baines. I'm emailing WECA officers all the time about buses. The thing is, you did an FOI on emails between the Mayor and Baines, and the Mayor never responds to emails. So there aren't any. He never sends any, he never responds. So there's no point emailing the Mayor because he doesn't respond. So I have to say WECA officers are extremely good, and we have a really good working relationship with Bristol and South Gloss, and I can say that's across transport, it's across planning as well. We're trying to work really closely together because of the difficulties that will not be resolved until after May next year.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. I'm going to ask Councillor Crawley now to sum up, please.
I think Matt said a lot of what I was going to say, so I'm not sure that I'm going to repeat it. I think that's, the experience has been that I and other councillors have sat for hours in meetings with WECA officers. What we haven't done is sat for hours with the Mayor because he's not been there. So that is a problem. We do want franchising. We want to work together for franchising because we do want to have control over the buses that our residents need. And that comes with working with WECA, but it also comes from listening to the plans that we have put forward. And we put a plan forward last year which got nowhere because they didn't listen. So let's hope that they listen now. I mean, we work very closely with the other local authorities, and I think that that will help when there is a new regime in May, and I really look forward to that because I think the atmosphere, which has been toxic, will be much better. And thank you for all your good points, and I'd like to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gawley. We now move to the vote. Can I ask you to announce the result, please?
Yes, that's carried with 37 votes in favour, 7 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. We now move on to item 17, a motion from the Independent Group. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. So this motion relates to the proposed introduction of parking charges in Midsummer Norton and Radstock starting in January. So the reason I brought this motion, it's certainly not an off-the-shelf political bandwagon. The reason this motion is here is because our businesses and their staff are genuinely in fear of losing their livelihoods. They've survived the COVID lockdowns, they've survived the cost of living crisis, and they'll be throw another curveball at them with the parking charges. So, looking at the origin of this charge, this first came to light in the February budget, where there was a proposal to raise £195,000 through parking charges in Midsummer Norton and Radstock. That figure had no basis, there was no substance to that number. It was just basically simply plucked out of the air. It's subsequently become quite obvious that that figure cannot be achieved, and potentially this project could actually even lose money. So suddenly the emphasis changed to apparently we suddenly have an air quality problem. Now, just to be clear, there is no problem with the air quality in Midsummer Norton High Streets. So we have an issue that there is no evidence to demonstrate any financial, environmental or community benefits from these charges. So where is the evidence? There is no parking survey. Why is that important? Well, if you don't understand the reason people park there, the length of the park, the reason they park there and why they're there in the first place, you can't calculate the costs. You can't calculate any idea of revenue. If you don't understand the costs to implement the project, the management, the maintenance, the enforcement of the project, you can have no idea what revenue you could raise or lose with this project. And with the amendment to 2 hours free parking in the proposal, it is quite possible that this project will lose money. The next thing that's missing is the impact assessment. There has been no impact assessment. So there's no way of understanding truly how much damage, how much harm this will do to our town, to our businesses, to Midsummer Norton High Streets. You have no idea about the sustainability, what effect it will have on the footfall. You have no idea what the vehicle displacement will do. There's a good chance that the vehicle displacement will have a negative effect on our air quality. It will certainly impact the residents that live around the high streets through the displacement, and businesses whose car parks will be hit, like the sports centre, that will be hit by displacement of vehicles. There's also the issue of the effect on our low-income families. The emission-based charges are, as I said before, a tax on the poor. Putting a charge up, an additional charge on people that can't afford the latest electric vehicle, they can't afford the latest fuel-efficient vehicles. These people work primarily in low-income jobs. They work in hospitality, they work in retail. But these are the people that need to be able to park all day. So we're taxing the poorest people twice. We know, and we've just had a conversation about it, we know that the public transport, particularly in our rural areas in North East Somerset, is absolutely appalling. And a lot of our residents struggle not to be stranded and isolated through the lack of public transport. They rely on their cars to be able to access the high streets, to be able to access council offices, libraries, banks, pharmacies, professional services, or just to meet people, just to attend meetings organised by Age UK and various other organisations that give them that social life. And they need a car to do that. Now, there has been a lot of discussion about the issue of air quality. Now, just to be clear, there is no evidence of an air quality issue in Midsummer Norton. There have been no air quality surveys
Councillor Hughes.
or reports. There's been, just to summarise then, the public consultation, the outcome was predetermined. We have a regeneration project in the High Street. This goes completely against that. To summarise...
Councillor Hughes, you can sum up at the end if you want to.
Okay. All council decisions must be based on evidence. There is no evidence to justify this decision.
I have a second to Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you. Agree with every word Sean says and the other words he was going to say. Midsummer Norton is a good, honest market town, run by good, honest, independent people. And if there's independent shops, we don't get the tourists there, so we have to attract the local people. And the local people work there, which is, as Sean said, if they've got to park all day long, all of a sudden, can they afford to work there? That's the issue. And then, or can the shops afford to put the price up to pay them? No, they can't. Midsummer Norton's not had a bucket load of money like a lot of places. It's had a little bit from Wecker, which is doing up, a little bit for the High Street. But mostly Midsummer Norton's looked after itself and done a good job. There was a public consultation. I think you can honestly say, it's not as I'd like to say, but cut back, it went down like a cup of last week's cold porridge. There was 4,000 objections to it. I just do not see the point. I think it was something that came out of Rachel Reeves' budget. It was to be in political here. You're paying X amount to set all this up. And I'm pleased to see, potentially, if it does go ahead, the 2-hour free parking. However, it takes the profit out of it then. So there's a good chance, by the time you pay the set-up costs, this will lose money. To gain what? To gain shops closing in Midsummer Norton, to lose business rates, for people to lose their jobs, to turn it into a ghost town. I just do not get it really. To go on to the air pollution, like Sean said, there isn't a problem. We don't think. No one's tested it, so we don't know. The extra charges for the dirty vehicles, so they say. It's a rural community. People will drive four-wheel drives. It's not going to be the Chelsea tractors, the nice new shiny Range Rovers. It's going to be cars that go to work. You're out in the country. You've got to go up and down the dirty lanes. You've got to a trailer. They haven't got those vehicles plus new ones. So have they got to pay extra because they work in the community? No, they shouldn't have to. I'd like to see this stop dead, but it does need a rethink. You're going to end up losing money to shut the market town down. I just don't understand that, so I'm happy to second this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. The Lib Dems will not be supporting this motion because it has many issues in it. I'm noting them all below, though I too may struggle to stay within what I only get 3 minutes. We have been clear on the objective of the proposals which were set out in the consultation and remain the following. Improve air quality through a shift to making sustainable transport, walking and cycling more attractive to those who can. Help reduce air pollution, improve public safety, tackle the climate emergency and encourage the turnover of parking spaces. We absolutely acknowledge that each of our areas within Bath and North East Somerset is unique. We therefore spend time and money significantly consulting to be able to amend our proposals in the light of feedback. Unlike any other area within Baines, as a result of listening to feedback, there will be 2 free hours parking provided in Midsummer Norton and Radstock and 25% reduction in the proposed hourly charge. This reduces the financial impact of the proposals on the motorists using the council car parks, whilst offsetting the costs of running them to the council and to the residents, whilst continuing to maintain and improve the provision of parking facilities. You say parking surveys, no parking survey has been undertaken. That is incorrect. Car parking surveys were undertaken in November 2022 as part of the local plan. The results informed the original proposal. Financial viability. The 195k that you quote forms part of the 206k for parking overall. We estimate that by providing 2 hours free parking, this will cost 31k out of that, which we aim to recover via other car parks usage going up. The introduction of charges ensures that the cost of these car parks is not subsidised by all residents, including those on low income, but by those that own cars and use these facilities. Impact assessment and in effect on low-income families. You say no impact assessment was undertaken. Our Equalities Impact Assessment was undertaken. It was developed and published alongside these proposals and is still on our website. We further stress that without the introduction of these charges at these locations, the cost of providing and maintaining them is subsidised by residents as taxpayers, including those that choose not to or cannot afford to own a car. I can't go through all the other bits, but you said you wanted evidence at the end. I'll give you more evidence. Let's look at what we're doing compared to our neighbours. Midsummer Norton and Radstock, we give free parking for 2 hours available in all spaces. South Gloss, 30 minutes in 10% of spaces only. North Somerset, 30 minutes. Short stay, we charge 30 pence an hour. South Gloss, 70 pence. North Somerset, from £1. All day, we charge £3 with a 35% discount with a season ticket. South Gloss, £5 for 6 hours. North Somerset, from £3.50 up to £8. And additional info, we allow our residents to pay by cash, by card, by phone, by text, by app. All our neighbouring authorities are cashless only, and they don't give the residents that opportunity. Those who wish to pop into town can do so without cost.
Thank you, Ripley.
Those who want to spend longer are being charged at a low rate, including those who work in businesses, and those who do not use it and or use other paying car parks are not funding this parking provision. I urge council to reject this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Listening to Councillor Rigby, I think the point has been missed. This is a matter of principle rather than how many pence you spend in South Gloucestershire if you want to park your car. And if these charges are imposed, I think we're going to need that great Yorkshireman again, Robin Hood, because he contested the system of taxing the poor and giving them the money being carried off by the wealthy, the Sheriff of Nottingham and so on. We are going to see this unjust charge unfairly affect the poorest people who can't afford to get a posh electric car. Now, I have noted that if you do want to charge your electric car in Radstock Library Car Park, you will have to pay the parking charge and for the electricity. It's when we had parking charges introduced for the large car park that was at the back of the Radstock Cooperative store, where you had to pay £1 if you didn't buy something in the store, the custom at the store sank by 1/3. And I maintain that that is what is going to happen now to Radstock if these charges come in. But people will just cease to come for all the reasons that people do come to that excellent hub of civilization. and we will lose out economically. I had a speech sort of all ready and prepared, and then I came in on the bus with Mrs. Carol Warrender, who owns the florist in Redstock, and she thought this could tip them over the edge because the staff would have to pay these charges. There seems to be very little consideration of our businesses that rely on people working all day and being able to use these car parks. And I'd like to know what you're going to do about the post office vans as well. If they get displaced, I don't think the post office is going to want to pay the charges that they would incur with having their vans parked in the car park. So it's a pretty miserable lookout, and I really think Radstock and Midsummer Norton deserve better. I would argue in planning terms, we are special cases. Each case, each place, whether it's Radstock, Midsummer Norton, Keynsham or the centre of Bath, should be considered on its own merits, like planning applications. And I think Radstock and all the people who want to come to Radstock deserve a better deal than having to pay these charges. It may not be very much at the moment, but we all know what it's like when you let somebody get their foot in the door. They're soon through the door. So please support this motion of the independents.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Biddiston.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, yeah, to be clear, I will support this because parking charges for Midsummer Norton and Radstock are an important issue, and I respect all of the things that have been said from the people behind. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring Keynsham to our attention, who has been through parking charges for the past 10 years. Why we are in a situation where one area, rural town, market town, can expect to pay significant amounts of money for its residents to park, and yet we are in a position where we're only proposing the charges for other of our rural towns, I can't fathom, because I get plenty of comments and complaints and bitterness about the residents having to pay charges in Keynsham. So I will be supporting this, but I'll also be defending the principle that this has been unfairly foisted upon Keynsham before many of us Keynsham councillors came to this chamber, but I do not understand why we have to put up with this inequality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Biddiston. Councillor Blackburn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, yet again, it appears Baines are changing the criteria or reasoning to continue to justify what they want to impose. To now learn that not only have Baines done no surveys, viability assessments, impact assessments, or air quality studies, beggars belief. But this is something that's now all too familiar when viewed alongside some of the other actions being imposed across the authority. The use of ETROs to improve people's lives should be welcomed, but this apparent lack of preparation makes it look very undemocratic. Baines treads a difficult line over parking, while celebrating the extra hundreds of thousands of pounds raised already this year from our charges, but I don't see the desired reduction in car journeys. I'll be supporting this motion because I have no evidence to explain that the reasoning and decisions taken are sound.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Moss.
Thank you very much. The Labour Group will be supporting this motion because what were these proposals in the budget trying to achieve? And I think there's clearly a number of elements. First of all, there's raising money. And it certainly looks as if that isn't going to happen. That the amount of money projected in February is not going to be achieved. The second bit is about pollution and air quality. Well, I have to say that certainly in Radstock, we do have a problem with air quality, but that's because we're on the crossroad of two main roads. It's nothing to do with parking, unless you look at the constant traffic jams and how people park for about 10 minutes at a time, but that's involuntary rather than voluntary parking. And I mean, Amanda was, at pains to argue her corner, as always, but I think there was one particular statement that she made, and that was that to treat each area as unique. And I'm afraid what we're seeing here is a Bath-based solution being imposed on market towns. And I take Dave's point about Keynsham being included in that. Radstock, Keynsham, Midsummer Norton do not have a park and ride. Radstock, Midsummer Norton and Keynsham do not have residence parking zones. So what we're seeing is people not having options to come into the towns another way. And we've had the discussion about buses and the lack of buses, but they do have the option of coming into town, looking at charges within car parks and going on to on-street residential street parking, because that's what happens if people are looking for alternatives. And I think I can see why, I guess, that it's included in the budget as a cash balancing exercise, but that clearly isn't working. But it's short-termism. It is damaging the high streets, it's damaging shopping in these market towns. And I'm afraid what is a Bath solution to a northeast Somerset problem is not working. And the fact that we're moving down to the first 2 hours being free, and I guess when we get the returns for how much money has actually been made, that will be shown to be the case. It's not working, so I urge people to support this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Moss. Councillor Johnson.
A few years ago, this was proposed, and at the time, the Lib Dem administration decided to conduct a U-turn. And then, actually, I don't know if you remember, but you actually started campaigning on the issue yourselves for free parking in Midsummer Norton. And I remember Councillor Romero being in Midsummer Norton Redfield trying to convince people that we shouldn't have parking charges brought in. So I don't understand the sudden change of heart after an election has happened. But the main issue we've got with these two areas, and when we had that last campaign to stop the introduction, and you did do a U-turn, you stopped the introduction, I went and knocked on the businesses and spoke to individuals that looked after them, whether they worked in there or not. And the stark reality that we're dealing with now is some of those businesses, and I've still got the petition at home, they do not exist. They are shut up. They're no longer there on the high street. So to bring this back in after a 2-year period where we've already seen the businesses are struggling on our high streets, especially in our market towns like in Radstock and Midsummer Norton, I think is foolhardy. And as Councillor Moss said, it's a very Bath-centric idea. Let's think about what works in Bath. It doesn't work everywhere else.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I believe Councillor McCabe doesn't want to speak now, is that correct? Thank you. Councillor Hell, and that will be my last speaker.
Thank you, Chair. I obviously am supporting the motion, and I also agree with everything that Councillor Biddleston said, and I would hope that the other 3 councillors from Keynsham in the chamber tonight would also support the motion on the basis of what Dave has said. But I won't look at them, so I don't want to embarrass them. What does concern me, though, is that Councillor Rigby said that the free parking, or the limited free parking and reductions in Radstock and Midsummer Norton were being funded by parking charges elsewhere. And that can only be in Keynsham. Well, that's how I read what she said. So, well, you can't say it will be funded elsewhere on parking charges.
Would you like to raise that point of order?
Yeah, my point of order is a factual correction. What I said will be raised by parking charges because of increased usage. I did not say it be raised by parking charges at Keynsham.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Hell, did you want to carry on?
Well, obviously I can't argue with what she's now reiterated, if indeed that's correct. But I do maintain that, certainly as Dave said, we have had them inflicted upon us. It shouldn't be inflicted upon another town. And there is no evidence and there is no support for it. So why are we doing it?
Thank you, Councillor Hell. Can I ask Councillor Hughes now to sum up?
Thank you. Yes. I mean, firstly, on the issue of the evidence, I asked several times for to see parking surveys. The best I got was being told that Mike Wilton had stood in a car park and spoken to 100 residents. That was the best I got. I've been asking since February. In terms of the impact assessment, there is no impact assessment. We asked for that during the public consultation and it didn't exist. So, and when we start looking at air quality, you claim in the reports that 77% of residents were in favour of this because of air quality issues. What they were actually asked in the public consultation was, are they concerned about air quality? They weren't asked, do you think Midsummer Norton or Radstock has a problem with air quality? So it was a leading question, and in fact that was the theme of the entire public consultation. The answers were predetermined from the way it was written. So I don't think you can get away from the fact that this is going to do irreversible harm to our economy in Midsummer Norton without any justifiable benefits. We can't see the financial benefits. There's certainly no air quality benefits from this. In fact, Midsummer Norton is just in the process of working on a master plan. In the same way as you're working on your Milson Street master plan, we have limited funding from WECA to do what we're calling the Old Brewery master plan in Midsummer Norton. But we're not being given the benefit of waiting for the outcome of that to understand what's the best use of our car park. That's already being predetermined by this council. So this will provide no benefit to your current £14 million income from parking charges at all. It will damage our businesses, and I would ask everyone to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. We'll now move to the vote. Okay, can I ask Joe to announce the results?
Yes, that is lost with 29 against, 16 for. Thank you. That motion is lost, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Joe. We now move on to item agenda 18, a motion from the Labour Party. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. The Labour Group is proposing this motion because here we are in a wealthy area and a number of our school pupils are going hungry. There is absolutely no need for this. Means-tested free school meals, known as FSM, have been available in England since 1944. The government provides funding for free school meals. However, for various reasons, some people do not claim it. I raised this issue over a year ago, but requested statistics have not been provided and no solutions offered.
If you think back to your childhood days and you had school dinners, you may remember with affection all of those that you enjoyed and those you didn't. I remember hating the days we had liver, cabbage and boiled potatoes, none of which I liked. Waiting hopefully for a decent pudding, only to find out it was something obnoxious like semolina rice, or that creepy stuff with the eyes, tapioca. I can recall the feelings I had, being hungry all afternoon, desperately willing the clock to speed up so I could go home and get something to eat. What must this be like for children in 2024 who experience this every day, but not through choice? The Labour group was shocked to find out that Baines has the worst attainment levels among 7 to 11-year-olds. How can we let this happen? What can we do to change this? Free School Meals Research asked over 2,000 children across the country about their school food and levels of hunger. The findings are that children who were food insecure had a higher probability of poor mental health. Almost a quarter of children who experienced hunger did not receive free school meals. We recognise schools do their best to encourage people to sign up, but we can and should do more. In fact, there is a simple solution to this if we auto-enrol pupils for free school meals, hence the motion. This is not a new idea and has been carried out successfully in a number of local authorities. Having raised this at Cabinet in March, it's taken a long time to see some positive solutions. In fact, just over 9 months. I could have had a baby in that time. However, I did some research and offer one example. Sheffield, where the City Council uses information already held by the Council to identify families that are missing out on a free school meal. Since 2016, they've had an additional £3.8 million that's been generated for schools to provide targeted support to improve the life chances of disadvantaged children and young people. Talking to school heads here, they explain the benefits, like the pupil premium, which gets added on if you get a free school meal, vouchers during school holidays, access to the household support grant. Some of our children in Baines have been missing out. Meanwhile, it's common for teachers to have to deal with unruly behaviour only to find their pupils haven't eaten. Here we have a golden opportunity to improve the lives of children and their families, which would reduce the need for services provided in the long term, for example by the Council and also the NHS. The research is clear. There's a link between education, between health and food insecurity. What we need to do is delegate to officers in consultation with a Cabinet member to design and implement the necessary processes to implement this. Sheffield Council have offered to link their officers with ours to enable the policy to be implemented. And I would quote William Wordsworth at the end of this. What would the world be to us if the children were no more? We would dread the desert behind us as worse than the dark before. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. Councillor Robin Moss is going to second that.
Thank you very much. More than happy to second this, and I'd particularly like to thank Leslie for the work that she's done on this over the last year or so, certainly pushing us as a group and scrutiny and officers as well. It's good to see this motion here. It's also good to see that the Labour government is pushing this particular agenda as well. I understand that there will be an amendment coming from the Liberal Democrat group, which obviously we've seen, we will accept. Understand that some of that is tidying up, some of that is a bit of change to the textual context of the motion, but I'll go into that in a second. I think it's indisputable that that auto-enrolment will particularly help families. It will assist school budgets, and more generally, that whole linkage between hunger, health and educational attainment. And I think it's something this council as a whole can be proud of, that the assistance given to families in receipt of free school meals, particularly during holiday times, is something that should be welcomed. But clearly what this does is look at that gap where there are a number of families who fall through the net in holiday time as well as during term time because of the lack of enrolment on free school meals. And that comes for a number of reasons, whether that's difficulty with enrolment, whether that is about embarrassment, various reasons. There are various reasons for that. And I think looking at auto-enrolment and the way that schools actually deal with the income coming in for school meals and not stigmatising actually helps with that. I would say on the issue, on the amendment, one point in the amendment is the possible technical difficulties with setting up auto-enrolment. Leslie makes the point we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Other councils are doing that, and I think, as Leslie has said, let's go to those councils and see how they do that, so that we can achieve that. There's also, as well, unfortunately, the reference to an automatic report back to the scrutiny panel has been withdrawn. But I'm confident that the Chair and the Vice Chair of the relevant panel will make sure that that comes back to panel, whether it's in the motion or not. So that's fine. I hope that all council members are able to support this, and that we can have a unanimous result on this resolution. Thank you, and thanks again to Leslie.
I believe we have an amendment on the table from the Lib Dem Party. Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by stating that the Liberal Democrat Group welcome the opportunity to discuss this important issue and shine a light on the value of free school meals in tackling poverty and the attainment gap. Our amendment has some clarifications and accuracy tweaks and also widen the vision of the motion. We hope that will be seen as practical, positive enhancements and acceptance to the mover, which I think we've heard probably you will. As a group, we support the overall purposes of this motion, and I'm pleased to note that the Council has already started looking at the idea of auto-enrolling local eligible children for free school meals through the welfare and children's service teams in the last few weeks. This includes reviewing the toolkit provided by Fix Our Food, as mentioned in the motion. Eligibility to receive free school meals is linked to certain income-related benefits or a family income below the £7,400 threshold for families receiving universal credit. These children may be some of the most vulnerable in our community, and free school meals are a helping hand to support their health, well-being and education. To date, the Council has worked mainly with schools to increase take-up of free school meals. This also benefits the schools, as they receive extra funding for each pupil in receipt of free school meals. However, the process asks families to make the applications, and for whatever reason, not everyone who is entitled does so. Introducing an auto-enrolment process would be more for children receiving their free school meals. Auto-enrolment is not simple to achieve. It involves navigating through the data permissions of various systems to identify eligible children. It also seems reasonable to then have an opt-out choice for families as opposed to an opt-in system that exists at the moment. The project will be led by the Baines Welfare Team, who say the timescales are feasible. As this concept seems so helpful, we are also saying, why not make it a national policy, rather than each council having to figure it out piecemeal. So we'll take up the offer that's been made this evening, but we do think it's a wider issue. We're suggesting lobbying the government for a national rule change so that all families on the relevant benefits can be auto-enrolled. Many thanks to my colleague Dina and Liz from the PDS for this suggestion, by the way. It is also just to highlight yesterday's announcement of the Household Support Fund allocations for 24-25. I'm pleased that the free school meal holiday voucher scheme will continue, as this is a great help to families. The holiday vouchers will benefit 4,100. I'll conclude then. The amendment to this proposal by the Liberal Democrat group is a constructive way, and I hope the whole council will support these tweaks in the best interest of children in the Bath and North East Somerset area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Mansell and Councillor Moss, do you accept this amendment?
Yes. Can I speak to it?
Sorry?
Can I speak to it?
You can at the end. Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I've got Councillor Biddleston.
Chair, well, I'll be brief. I've never needed 3 minutes yet. As well as being a councillor for Cambridgeshire South, I'm a teacher and a proud trade union secretary for the National Education Union. And me and colleagues have witnessed firsthand the effects of hunger on children in Bath and North East Somerset, in our own authority. Teachers have told me that they are bringing food for hungry children and keeping it in their desks, particularly in our primary schools and in schools with larger numbers of vulnerable families. My union is currently lobbying Parliament with the objective of free school meals for all children. We point out that nationally 1 in 5 schools report running food banks, and that these facts are disproportionately underrepresented in the media, and I feel that these things ought to be a greater focus. Auto-enrolment then, and I'm very glad for the comments of Mr May, that's warmed the hearts of many of our colleagues. Thank you. Auto-enrolment is the least that we can do, whilst we acknowledge that Sadiq Khan has permanently extended a free school meal scheme to every primary school child in London. And this motion is one step towards what I believe should be our true ambition: free school meals for all children, and that child hunger and poverty should at once be consigned to where it should be, Dickens novels and history, as a part of the curriculum. They should be read about at school as an appalling history and not lived through today. This motion, then, is the least we can do to assist.
Thank you, Councillor Biddleston. Councillor Romero.
Thank you, Chair. As Chair of the Children and Adult and Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Panel, I and other members of the panel have highlighted the work in other councils where they are trialling automatic enrolment for free school meals for those in receipt of income-related benefits. To Robin's point, if this amendment if this amended motion passes, as I think it will, I, as Chair of the panel, will expect and will ask for appropriately timed progress reports before implementation and after, which you knew I'd say. More councils, including this one, are now considering how to automatically enrol those on income-related benefits. But wouldn't it be so much simpler if, rather than doing this piecemeal, council by council, government just changed the rules so that all those on income-related benefits across the country who have children at school would be automatically enrolled to receive free school meals? As has been mentioned by Councillor May and Councillor Mansell, in addition to the direct and positive impact on children of a free, nutritious lunch, automatic enrolment would ensure more families are helped during school holidays, as more children will qualify for holiday free school meal vouchers. Plus, for schools, there will be additional free school meal related pupil premium funding. It seems to me highly appropriate that all of our MPs, as well as the council leader, should lobby government for this change. And I also hope that Councillor Biddlestone's work to extend free school meals to all children is in the long term successful. Child hunger should be consigned to history. I hope everyone in this chamber will support this amended motion and that we can all work together to give children a daily nutritious meal with all the benefits this will bestow during the school week and during school holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Romero. Councillor Hale.
Thank you, Chair. It's been my privilege to represent Cambridgeshire South for a number of years now, and it is the most disadvantaged ward within Cambridgeshire. And some 12 years ago, because of what I'd seen, I established, with the help of others, the Keynsham Food Bank. Now, that was 12 years ago, but the sad fact is it's still doing a good trade because there is a need. I think if you aren't close to a ward such as Keynsham South, where you can physically see disadvantage, you don't necessarily understand it. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to anybody else in the chamber, but there are an awful lot of people out there leading extremely difficult lives, and a couple of pounds here and there makes one hell of a difference. And you know, it's occasionally you say, well, it's only £5, and then I check myself, because I know that £5 for somebody is a significant amount of money. So it really is important that we as a council carry this forward and widen it, as has already been said, because as I say, we should be serving the most disadvantaged in our communities, and they are out there, folks, they are out there. I mean, Keynsham South is the third most disadvantaged ward within this authority. Tim has the most disadvantaged one. So, yeah, we could carry on saying it all night, but please, please support the motion to make the lives of those who are having difficult lives that little bit easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hale. So I'm going to ask Councillor Mansell now to the right to reply on the debate.
Thank you, everyone, for your positive statements. The Labour Group accepts this amendment with some reservations. We want to see a move to action on this. We were careful not to be prescriptive here, as it's important that officers own the process and identify the best way to take this forward. Besides, the request for information about free school meals has been raised at the PDS for over a year now. And I'm personally mystified as to why this has taken so long when the opportunity has been there for many years to actually take any positive action. Information was requested at the Cabinet meeting in March, and the reply shows that much is being done by officers and by schools, but no solutions were offered. And you can't always believe what you read in the newspapers. The situation is escalating in Baines, where there's an increase in eligibility rates of 27% between May 20 and May 2023. We are concerned at the removal of the word priorities on point 18. What we want to see is some action, and more speedily, for our young people, schools, and those young people's families. The inertia is concerning. We have lots of plans and policies, and solutions are available. It's time to put them into practice. On the 17th of July, the Prime Minister announced the creation of a new ministerial child poverty task force to break down barriers to opportunity and improve the life chances of every child. It's about ensuring a foundation of economic security for families, recognising the importance of happy and thriving childhoods, and a commitment that background must not limit opportunity. The aim is to improve children's lives and life chances now, and tackle the root causes of child poverty in the long term. This fits with the principles in our Children's Action Plan. And I welcome the statement from Dina, as Chair of the PDS, that she will be calling for reports, and certainly do support that. And I would also suggest, supporting the letter going to the government, that we consider calling for, as Councillor Biddleston has said, free school meals for all children, and as soon as possible. And also that we look to find out how we can contribute to that task force. Meanwhile, to quote a slogan we all know well, what we need is deeds, not words. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. The amendment became the original motion, so I'm going to ask Councillor May now to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So we'll move to the vote. Sorry, my apologies.
No, Chair, you don't need to apologise because in the standing orders it's quite clear that I actually have the right to sum up. Anyway, we won't argue. No, we're agreeing on this. Let's just go to the vote. I think it would be silly to have an argument.
Especially because it would be wrong.
What?
So we're going to move on very quickly because time is running out, so we all vote, please.
Eleanor, there's a point of order.
Eleanor, is that a point of order?
I wanted to ask if we could have the window closed behind us. I'm getting very cold, and so are a number of other people.
I think that's an agreement there. There you go. Moved. Right, that looks like that's carried. Thank you very much. So very quickly, as Chair, I've agreed to accept the two statements, one from Councillor Wright and one from Councillor Pantania, to be put into the minutes because we need to now go to a special meeting regarding Twerton and Whiteway. Thank you very much. So our first meeting has come to an end and we're now going to start the second one. Right.
Did you say it's unanimous?
Sorry? Right, welcome to everybody. We've been through the procedure for evacuation. I will ask Joe for any announcement for apologies. There's none. Declarations of interest. Oh.
I think I have apologies from Sam Ross, Sean Stevenson McGall, Alison Stretfield-James, Sarah Warren, Michelle O'Doherty, Sarah Moore, Mark Elliott, Sam Kelly, Hal McPhee, Michael Orton, Onkar Saini, Anna Box, Steve Hedges, Paul Roper and June Player. Yeah, okay. And Tim's just come back in.
Thank you. Does anybody have any declarations on this that they wish to declare? No? Thank you. So I wish to inform councillors that the vote on the Twerton agenda item needs to be 2/3 majority of the members present, and ask Joe to announce that afterwards. So there is no urgent business by the chair. There's no items from the public. So we now go to the Twerton electoral ward now. Can I ask Councillor Wood to move the recommendation, please?
Thank you, Chair. On the advice of my colleagues, Councillor Ball and Councillor Moore, I'm recommending that Council votes to change the name of the Twerton ward to the Twerton and Whiteway ward. I'm advised this name better reflects the geography of that community. And the consultation itself hinted in that direction. On first glance, I was surprised that only a narrow majority responded, 53%. But it became clear that several respondents objected, thinking what was being proposed was the merging of a pre-existing Twerton ward with a pre-existing Whiteway ward. Hopefully this will help to reduce confusion in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Timble to second that.
So I'll second and speak very briefly. Twerton and Whiteway are two distinctive different communities. Whiteway has always fallen under Twerton ward since it came across the South Down a few years ago. The Whiteway area of the Twerton ward is the most deprived section of the ward itself. Residents of that area do feel left out quite often. It's only fair to give them a distinctive name with regard to the ward itself.
Thanks, Councillor Ball. Councillor Jackson.
There's a problem here interpreting paragraph 3.8. A two-thirds majority must vote in favour of a change of name to enable the change to take effect. Does that mean two-thirds majority of all the councillors that could be here, or just simply two-thirds of those of us who survived this long?
Joe, could you give an answer to that, please?
Give an answer? Yeah, that it's two-thirds of councillors present and voting. So at the moment there are 46 people in the room, so that will be 31 in favour. Please stop leaving the room because I'm trying to keep a tally on you, but that's the current state of play, I think.
Do we have anybody that wishes to make a statement? No? So we will go to the vote. Right, has everybody voted that wishes to vote? I'm guessing that's a yes, so that's carried.
Yes, that is carried, thank you.
Wonderful. So I will take this opportunity, I know it's a bit early, we're in November, but to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.